prolonged global slump in demand. It's a different story for lab-grown diamonds, which have rapidly increased market share and competition. But that doesn't mean Botswana's diamond industry is over. Instead, the expectation is it will concentrate more on big spenders. So expect a doubling down on marketing strategies to revive demand for mined diamonds. But with a sparkling alternative now in the mix, it might be a hard sell to convince consumers to buy into that. This edition of The Inquiry was presented by me, Charmaine Cozier. The producer was Jill Collins, researcher Maeve Schaffer, editor Tara McDermott, and technical producer Craig Boardman.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us wherever you're joining us from. And I've been starting the shows by saying good morning as well. A special good morning to the evacuees who are here with us in Winnipeg and in southern Manitoba. The show is on until 8:37 this morning, and the air feels pretty good in the city of Winnipeg. We do have air quality statements, though, for Brandon, Killarney, Melita, and Verdon. So that's, of course, due to the wildfire smoke. We also have the Paw, Flin Flon, and Lynn Lake with an air quality advisory this morning as well. Let's say good morning to the team. Sierra Sanders, you might have just seen pop into the studio. She's directing the show today, and we'll be covering the commute. Good morning to Abby Adiyemi, who's behind the controls. Abby is our lead technician on the show and will be on the air covering weather. And then good morning to Mr. Brad Lillies, who's behind the controls of YouTube if you're watching the show today. 3 minutes to 6 in World Report. Right now, though, Heather Wells in your Manitoba headlines.
Good morning. Well, a caregiver from Cranberry Portage says the wildfire evacuation has been difficult for children. Irvin Head and his nephew and 2 nieces were forced to leave at the end of May. They've been in Winnipeg ever since. Head says children have mostly been cooped up inside and they miss school. He says it's especially tough for his 14-year-old nephew who's missing out on core memories with his friends. The Red Cross is facing criticism this morning from a Northern Manitoba emergency coordinator working with evacuees. Lori Forbes in the RM of Kelsey is helping more than 100 families staying in the Paw after being forced from their homes. She says they badly need money, and many evacuees can't navigate through the Red Cross rules. We're going to hear more from her in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
In the actual forecast today, sunshine for Winnipeg, high 22, sunny in Brandon, the high 22 as well. And then in Thompson, mainly cloudy, a 30% chance of showers and a high of 12. So kind of just like yesterday, some rain in the forecast, but not enough to really make a big difference in the wildfire situation. So we'll hope for more. In the first hour of the program, to the fires, we will hear from an evacuee from Pimicikamak Cree Nation who's been staying in a hotel since the end of May. So we're going to hear more about that experience. Also in the first hour of the show, we have our medical column. Today we're looking at drowning and the risks associated. It is that time of year again. And we begin by hearing from a local beauty school who's been offering spa and salon services for some of those evacuees. So really nice gesture. Stay with us.
Today on Q.
I'm Jill Deacon, in for Tom Power. The Grammy-winning singer-songwriter Alessia Cara has made an unlikely career writing songs about being an introvert in an extrovert's industry. She'll tell you all about her growth, both in music and in life.
Isn't it obvious? Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Police fire rubber bullets against demonstrators in Los Angeles. Protests against U.S. immigration policies are spreading across that country. U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial immigration raids continue, and hundreds of people are being taken into custody every day. Protests are erupting on the streets in several cities. In a large part of downtown Los Angeles, a nightly curfew is now in effect. And in Texas, the governor is calling in federal reinforcements. The CBC's Richard Madden is following this story from Washington. And Richard, what is the latest?
Yeah, well, some 4,800 troops are already on the ground in California, and President Trump is threatening to deploy more National Guard or Marines to other cities with or without the approval of state or local governments. And This is from Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, New York, Denver, and more. Los Angeles, of course, is where this all started. Protests against the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal migrants that at times turned violent. California's Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, and President Trump accusing each other of politicizing immigration policy.
He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. We do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA.
If we didn't do this, Los Angeles would burn. It would be burning to the ground right now.
Now, in contrast, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who's a major Trump ally, confirms the National Guard has been deployed to his state and are on standby ahead of a major protest expected in San Antonio later tonight.
So what are we watching for next?
Yeah, well, lawmakers here are looking for clarity. What are the orders or directives for the Marines who've been deployed? We know their orders are to protect federal buildings and workers, but what happens if they interact with protesters? Could they use their weapons against their own citizens? Now, this is somewhat of an alarming scenario, so we'll have to see how this plays out because federalizing the National Guard is so rare in this country, but being deployed to other cities is something we haven't seen in modern memory.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Many of the wildfires burning through Canada's forests are threatening cabins, homes, and businesses, and some people are choosing to fight them themselves. It's the choice some neighbors in Saskatchewan's Narrow Hills Provincial Park made. Aaron Collins has their story.
This stretch of shore along Lower Fishing Lake in Saskatchewan, one worth fighting for.
We're still fighting there. It's right at Rangers Beach now.
And in late May, that's just what happened. As two wildfires approached the resort community in the Narrow Hills Provincial Park, a group of locals stayed behind, digging in to beat back the flames.
When things got close to home here, it was all hands on deck to come here and save the cabin.
Travis Craik, one of a handful of men who fought a wall of fire here.
Dad and I, and then three other cabin owners, Rick, Lenny, and Greg.
The neighbors working around the clock, pumping water from the lake to keep the fire burning just yards from their cabins at bay. The cleanup has now begun. Every cabin here, nearly 100, saved. But Craik says similar firefights are going on across Canada.
There's places in northern Ontario, northern Alberta, northern BC, all burning right now. And you hear of all the other locals that are sticking around. So it's not just us. There's so many people right now that are fighting for their own houses and their own communities and forests.
There are currently more than 100 wildfires burning out of control across the country. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Lower Fishing Lake, Saskatchewan.
A video of a physical altercation between two police officers and a 29-year-old woman is causing outrage on social media. The woman was arrested Saturday in Smith Falls, southwest of Ottawa. She's been charged with mischief and causing a disturbance. As Jody Applewhite reports, the woman's family says police mishandled the incident.
When I started recording, I thought it was just going to be like any other arrest. And then I seen how the police officer handled her and my stomach just dropped.
Mackenzie LeClaire looked out her window Saturday night and saw two police officers. Then she took out her phone.
You think it's okay because you have a badge?
And captured one of the officers dragging a woman in handcuffs from a police cruiser, then pinning her to the ground for 20 seconds. She posted the video anonymously to social media.
I had no idea that it would blow up to such extent.
When Sarah Black came across the video, she recognized it was her sister, who's had a history of mental health and substance use issues.
My sister needs help, not more trauma, and officers clearly need better training for mental health intervention if this is how they behave in these kind of situations.
Police say the woman was arrested after causing disturbance in a local business. Once in the police cruiser, they say she kicked and spat through a plexiglass divider. Black says she and her family aren't disputing the arrest, but the way police handled it shouldn't have happened.
There is no scenario in which someone deserves to be treated with this kind of retaliatory violence.
Smith Falls' police chief Jody Empey says the service began investigating but is now referring the case to another force. The chief will not comment further until that investigation is complete. Both the police officers in the video have been put on administrative duties. Jody Applewhite, CBC News, Ottawa.
Asian stock market shares are trading higher this morning. The U.S. and China have agreed to a new trade framework. High-level meetings were held in London to ink out a trade truce. Both countries had raised tariffs on the other's imports. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was at the talks.
We're going to go back and speak to President Trump and make sure he approves it. They are going to go back and speak to President Xi and make sure he approves it. And if that is approved, we will then implement the framework.
Lutnick says the framework includes a rollback on export controls on certain goods and technologies and a resolution for restrictions on rare earths and magnets. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu could see his government dissolved today if a vote in the Knesset goes against him. The vote was called by the opposition, but it will only pass if Netanyahu's ultra-Orthodox coalition partners refuse to side with him. And that is what they have threatened to do. They are frustrated Netanyahu has failed to pass a law that would exempt the ultra-Orthodox community from military service. Ontario's premier is facing fresh calls to be more conservative. An anonymous group is pushing for change from progressive conservative leader Doug Ford. As Mike Crawley reports, the drive for a provincial shift comes as Ford rides a wave of popularity.
A mandate to do whatever it takes to protect Ontario.
Doug Ford on election night, winning his third straight majority, something no leader has accomplished in Ontario since the 1950s.
The people have spoken.
Now, barely 3 months after that decisive win, and just a few weeks after Pierre Poilievre's brand of conservatism fell short in the federal election, some party activists are pushing for a rightward shift from Ford. They're called Project Ontario and describe themselves as a grassroots movement. Their unsigned manifesto says, quote, "When conservatives lose their principles, Ontario loses its way."
I don't think it's a big thing.
Corey Tenaik has been campaign director for all three of Ford's wins. He's brushing off Project Ontario as no threat to the premier.
He's the most popular conservative in Canada by a country mile. The notion that that is a problem is, I just think, a testament to how wrong-headed the people involved in that are.
Patrice Dutil is a professor of politics and public administration at Toronto Metropolitan University.
Maybe they'll put some policy meat on their bones, but right now we don't even have bones. We've got a seed.
The group describes Ontario as in decline, calls its economy poor and its taxes punitive. It says it's organizing an assembly of conservatives to push for change. CBC News attempted to contact the people behind the movement, but received no response. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Was it honestly the best? 'Cause I just wanna see the next.
This is the last major hit released by K-pop supergroup BTS. The band has been on hiatus since 2022. The members of BTS have been completing their mandatory military service, something all able-bodied men in South Korea are required to do. Yesterday, 2 more heartthrobs completed their service, and by the end of the month, all 7 members will be finished serving in the military. Will BTS fans get a reunion? Their agency is hinting yes. And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Promise that we'll keep on coming back for more.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. And this morning, we are expecting lots of sunshine in the city. This hour on the show, we're going to talk about how people have been offering various lovely things to the evacuees who are here in southern Manitoba and in Winnipeg. We're starting with a story of a local beauty school that's offering some much needed spa and salon services for displaced wildfire folks. So stay tuned. We'll give you that story. Also this hour on the show, we'll hear from an evacuee from Pimicikamat Cree Nation who's been in a hotel since the end of May. So more on what that experience is actually like. For those of you who tune into the show regularly, you might be wondering where Scott Regehr has been. He is doing some special coverage of the FIFA World Cup, as you heard on World Report, now 1 year out. Scott's going to join us live with a report this hour to tee it up. So stay tuned. Right now, though, let's go to Heather Wells. She joins us with our Wednesday morning headlines. I'm losing track of what day it is, Heather. What's developing in the news?
Good morning. Yes, well, the mayor of Flin Flon calls it a disgusting wildfire scam. A website claiming to be a Flin Flon clothing store says its warehouse was destroyed in a wildfire, but that a few final pieces are left. The website says it's your chance to own part of the company, which they call Manitoba Mode. Well, a quick look at the site, and it's clear it is a fake. George Fontaine in Flin Flon says no buildings inside his city have burned. We'll hear more about that. Also, home again after 6 months away. Hundreds of soldiers returning to CFB Shiloh last night after deployment in Latvia. Sergeant Ryan Gilk says they were part of an ongoing mission, part of Canada's contribution to NATO's measures to discourage aggression in Central and Eastern Europe. We'll hear from him as well in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Abby Adeyemi now, who is here with our forecast. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Marcy. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm pretty good. What's up with the forecast?
Looking across board from south, tracking it into the northern part of the province, it will be kind of warm with smoke in the air today. We're going to see a mix of sunshine and clouds throughout the day, and some windy conditions in a lot of places. We still do have that air quality warning in effect for parts of southern Manitoba, and tracking it into the northern part of the province. This will be impacting the Westman region, as smoke from the fires near BC now, and Alberta is affecting areas from Brandon all the way down into the Turtle Mountain area, and then in the Verdun region you would also notice smoke in the air. But the good news is this smoke should clear later today for folks in the Westman region, and further north we still have that air quality statement. It continues for the Power Flin Flon all the way down to Puktuagan, where the fires is really causing a lot of poor air quality and visibility. So if you have issues breathing, I'd advise you reduce your outdoor activities. But right now, Winnipeg, it is 12, partly cloudy outside. Some light smoke still hanging around this morning, but that should clear as we get into the day. We expect a mix of sun and clouds, and the highs will be near 22. And temperatures across board in the southern part of the province, we're looking at 6 to 11 degrees. Up north, we already have sunshine in Churchill at this time. We're seeing temperatures at 1 degree in Churchill at this time.
All right, Abby, you're mentioning the air quality. On Friday, Winnipeg registered in Canada as one of the worst places in the country for air quality. We're not used to that here in the city.
That's true. Yeah. We're like at 10.
Yeah.
So it was like really poor on Friday.
Yeah, it's something to take seriously. I mean, I know we've been doing reporting on it and interviews about it, but you want to just check the websites to see what the quality is like. But today you should be here in Winnipeg, at least, in a bit of a better situation. All right, 6:14 a.m. Here is Sierra Sanders in with the commute. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. So we're just getting the morning commute started, but just some construction to note that is actually starting today. It's on Williams Avenue, between Sherbrooke Street and Tecumseh Street. All westbound lanes, the eastbound median lane, and north sidewalk will be closed. This closure is only until tomorrow, but expect some delays in that area. And if there's anything slowing you down out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, there is a long list of organizations that are trying to reach out and help evacuees, either with donations, of course, but also with things to do. So entrance passes, in some cases free entry, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, the YMCA of Winnipeg, the Art Gallery, Assiniboine Park Zoo. So all of them have been involved. But there's now one more to add to the list, because MC College in downtown Winnipeg is joining in the efforts to help those wildfire evacuees in a way that they can get some R&R. Sometimes that help is a day at the salon getting pampered. They're providing free spa and beauty salon activities and treatments, for evacuees. The beauty school wants to help people, as I mentioned, relax and unwind. Chancey Elliott is an instructor at the college who's been working with the students and the evacuees, and she spoke all about this with the CBC's Faith Fundal yesterday on Up to Speed.
Why free spa and salon treatments?
Well, in all honesty, we really all want to do our part. We can't all be out there on the front lines fighting a fire. But what we can do is offer what it is that we do. And that would be in the form of both mental and physical well-being. In this instance, we're opening our doors and saying, please come spend a day with us.
What sorts of things do folks get to experience or get to have done on them?
Well, it really is their choice, whatever it is that we can accommodate them with time-wise that they can give us. We have a full hair department where we offer everything from cutting and styling to coloring and perming. We also have a full aesthetics department where we offer a variety of facial and body treatments, and of course a nail department where we offer manicures and pedicures.
And these are students of the college. What's it been like for those students as they offer those services? What have you heard from them?
In all honesty, I really hear nothing but an overwhelming sense of empathy. Our students have not only, offered their services and their workmanship, but offered an ear and a shoulder. Sometimes just having that outside source to speak to and to relate to and have that human touch. It really is, good for the soul.
I wonder how much do you talk about the role as a listening ear, as a hairstylist or nail technician? What is that like? Because I guess as the person providing the services, you get to speak to the client and hear about either their best day or their worst day of their lives.
You are absolutely correct. The interaction and chair-side manner is actually a huge portion of our curriculum. And really the introduction to a variety of different types of people from all walks of life. This is something that, not everybody has that experience until they come into a building such as this as a student. Stepping outside of your own social environment can be new and ultimately an amazing experience. It's a worldly experience that I think that they've really been appreciating, because to have these conversations that they've been having over these last few days while our doors have been open, it really has been eye-opening.
I know you said that it's not been surprising so far, the reaction from your students and reaction from your leadership. Has anything stood out for you as you look at this whole thing from your unique frame?
Well, I think personally it would be the overwhelming happiness. To see a small amount of relief in an otherwise extremely devastating situation. It's extremely unpredictable. But to just be able to feel even just a day's worth of escapism from all of that hardship, just seeing the response and the happiness and the smiles and the appreciation and the gratitude, it makes us feel like we're doing our part.
Chancey, on the surface, a hair wash, a fresh set of nails, or maybe even a massage, on the surface might look like something that's not that big of a deal. But I imagine you've seen what the impact is on folks. How does doing any of those things change someone's outlook or feeling, would you say?
Well, like I said, I really do believe in escapism. Sometimes just being able to leave an otherwise horrible situation, a very unknown situation, just being able to let that sit off to the side and put an inner focus on yourself can make a world of a difference. Just to see somebody look at themselves and go, I feel like I matter. I think that that's really what I'm seeing a lot of right now. The evacuees who have left their home and left their social groups, and in some cases what I've heard is they're feeling a little invisible. So to walk in the doors and be treated with kindness and smiles and to just leave that negativity and sadness aside for a small moment makes a world of difference. Your physical safety is always of the utmost importance, but your mental health that's being affected by that stress, it also needs some assistance.
Might be unconventional, an unconventional way of helping evacuees, but it sounds like it is having a tremendous impact. Chancey, thank you for the time and for the work of your folks.
Thank you so much for having us.
So that was Chancey Elliott, one of the instructors at MC College in downtown Winnipeg. So their free services for wildfire evacuees are available up until June 20th. And there are limited spots available. So you need to find out more information by going to their website, which is the letters mccollege.ca/Winnipeg.
So now we got cars flying in the air.
Dramatic car stunts are not just the stuff of movies, they're also the stuff of car commercials.
The case for precision German engineering rests on our tires.
But sometimes the stunt doesn't go as planned. Crazy automobile stunt commercials on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Who's ready for some football? Little footy, little soccer. Get ready to hear that theme a lot if you love it, because it's the official theme of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. It starts, as you heard on World Report, a year from today. Now, Canada, for the first time, is going to host the tournament. Oh, there's that coveted trophy Brad's showing on our YouTube channel this morning, and the stands with the Canadian flags and the seats. So exciting. So with Canada for the first time hosting, we're sharing the responsibilities with Mexico and the United States. So we're going to have venues across the three countries. It's not, though, without controversy. Now, Scott Reguer, as I mentioned, who's on with us every morning on CBC Sports, wasn't on yesterday, and I suspect it's because he's been working on this. He is here with a special report about the World Cup. Hi, Scott.
Hey there, Marcy.
So before we get into some of the more contentious aspects that I alluded to here, what for those that need this answered, because I know the answer, but what makes the World Cup such a big deal?
Well, Marcy, in terms of sports events, there's just nothing that compares in scope. The last World Cup in Qatar attracted more than 5 billion viewers. That's more than half the world's population, largely, of course, because soccer is the only truly global sport. When Lionel Messi led Argentina to that thrilling win over Kylian Mbappe and France in the final game, an audience of 1.5 billion tuned in. That's more than 10 times the number of people who watched the last Super Bowl game. And given the growing population of this sport around the planet and the growth in number of teams that have been invited to next year's World Cup, the ratings should go even higher.
Now, we are a year out. What can you tell us, though, about some of the countries that have already qualified?
So a record 48 nations are going to be involved. That compares to 32 at the last World Cup. FIFA, Marcy, is trying to make it a less exclusive tournament to get into. So keep in mind, the World Cup's been contested for close to a century. Only 8 different countries have ever won the thing, and all of them are from either Europe or from South America. FIFA would love nothing more than to see a winner from a new continent break through. And let's be honest, that's largely for financial reasons. Imagine the broadcast revenue FIFA could collect if China or India won the tournament. That will not happen this time around. Both of the world's most populous nations have already been eliminated during qualifying. Now, as for those who do have spots, the 3 co-hosts, Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, all received automatic berths, while several others have earned their way there, including Argentina, which means Messi could cement his claim to being the sport's greatest ever player in what will surely be his last international tournament. Other qualifiers include Uzbekistan and Jordan. They'll make their World Cup debuts next year. And then there's perennial Asian powerhouses, Japan, South Korea, and Iran, who've all made their way through as well.
So I have a question about Iran. I'm wondering what concerns there are over a country like Iran being involved, given the Trump administration's ban on its citizens.
Well, Marcy, the advocacy group Human Rights Watch says it has grave concerns about the matches that'll be held in the United States. And it will host the lion's share of games, by the way, at this tournament. The group wrote an open letter to FIFA head Gianni Infantino last month, saying the stance of the Trump administration contradicts FIFA's stated values of human rights, inclusion, and global participation. Here's how Infantino responded to that.
The world is welcome in America. And let's be clear about that. This doesn't come from me. This comes from the American government. Those who want to come and spend a good time, those who want to come and celebrate the World Cup with their families, with their friends, and to spend an emotional moment. Everyone is welcome.
Okay, so that might be Infantino's view, or his hope anyway. But here's the reality, Marcy, of the ban that came into effect just this week. It makes exceptions for athletes, for coaches, and immediate relatives traveling for the World Cup, but doesn't mention traveling fans from countries at all. Haiti, which is on track to qualify for its first World Cup in half a century, is another country on Trump's banned list.
Now, there aren't just international politics at play here to talk about. There's also concerns within Canada itself about things like cost overruns. So what can you tell us about what we know?
Well, first off, Marcy, there are only 13 matches that are going to be played in this country, 6 in Toronto, 7 in Vancouver. The combined cost of staging those is expected to be about $1 billion. Money many argue governments would be better off spending on things like affordable housing or improved infrastructure. Carrie Bowman, a bioethicist at the University of Toronto, has a different concern, Marcy. FIFA paying for and then receiving priority to Canadian hospitals.
You cannot knock any Canadian out of the system in either the province of British Columbia or Ontario. And does this happen with VIPs? Look, it's getting better, but it does. And sports is ripe for this. You've got lots of healthcare workers that want to go out of their way to meet sports people, give them their cell phone number. It's very problematic ethically, very problematic.
For context, Marcy, doctors in BC conducted a survey last year suggesting 1.2 million patients in that province were waiting to see a specialized healthcare expert. And Bowman says Ontario's data is very similar. Here's another political hot potato, though. To mitigate World Cup costs in her city, largely because of security and stadium expansion, Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow is considering buying up tickets, around $11 million worth, and then reselling them to the public at a higher cost. She was asked whether the government should be in the ticket scalping business.
Well, we need money. There's no reason why not. We might as well be the one that actually benefit from it.
Not exactly music to the ears of professional ticket brokers, but it is residents in Toronto and Vancouver, Marcy, who stand to lose the most. For all of the global exposure and tourism dollars the World Cup might generate for those cities, there will be no legacy infrastructure left behind. No housing, no transit, no sporting venues, which is something the past 3 Olympic Games held in Canada at least left in their wake.
So obviously a work of progress, to say the least, off the field. What about on it? What do you expect from Canada at this World Cup?
Honestly, I've followed this team my whole life. I have higher hopes than ever. The country is ranked higher than ever, 30 by FIFA. And that's probably not a very generous ranking, given Canada's recently beaten the U.S. and Mexico, who are both currently ranked in the teens. Then, Marcy, there's the history of World Cup hosts outperforming their lot. Some will remember 2002 when South Korea was a co-host. Going into that tournament, FIFA had them at number 40. In terms of rankings, and cheered on by their rabid home fans. The Koreans, they made it all the way through to the semifinals. So there's some sound, Marcy, I gathered from Canada's World Cup warm-up matches in Toronto this week. With fan support like that, and with players like star striker Jonathan David in the form of their careers, I could see a best-ever World Cup result for Canada next year at this time. Just don't buy your tickets for it yet. FIFA isn't releasing them until this fall, so the ones going for thousands of dollars on resale sites right now, they are speculative at best and potentially fraudulent at worst. So buyer beware.
All right, well, instead of a thank you, I'll give you an ole, 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 ole.
There you go.
As we get in the mood. All right, thank you.
See you later.
And a thank you. Scott Regehr, who is usually covering sports with us this morning with a special report about the FIFA World Cup 1 year out from today. Let's talk about what is happening in the morning commute on your Wednesday morning here in Winnipeg. We know that William between Sherbrooke and Tecumseh, there's westbound lanes and sidewalks affected by some work there. Otherwise, so far so good so early. Call us if you need. Sierra will pick it up, 788-3093. Business news after your CBC Winnipeg news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 12 degrees. Sunshine gets us going this Wednesday, but becoming a mix of sun and cloud with local smoke. A high today of 22. The mayor of Flin Flon calls it disgusting. A website claiming to represent a Flin Flon clothing store says its warehouse was destroyed in the wildfires. But a closer look at that site shows it's a fake. CBC I-Team's Caroline Bargout reports.
It's called Manitoba Mode. On the landing page, there's a photo of a building on fire and text saying this is the final goodbye. The company claims to have been located in Flin Flon for 15 years, but now wildfires have destroyed the warehouse. All we have left are a few final pieces, and this is your last chance to own a part of Manitoba Mode before it's gone forever, says the website. But if you take a closer look, it's a fake. Some of the photos are AI generated, including one where Manitoba is spelled with an E at the end instead of an A. George Fontaine is the mayor of Flin Flon.
There's enough bad things going on in Flin Flon right now that nature has provided for us. We don't need this kind of behavior from people around. So, no, it's disgusting. It's a terrible thing.
David Gerhard is a computer science professor at the University of Manitoba. He says AI is getting better every day.
It's always improving. It's always getting more capabilities and being integrated into more aspects of our interaction.
He says people should always look for other ways to verify websites of companies they aren't familiar with, because nowadays they could be a scam. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A caregiver from Cranberry Portage says the wildfire evacuation has been difficult for children. Irvin Head and his nephew and two nieces were forced to leave at the end of May. They have been in Winnipeg ever since. Head says the children have mostly been cooped up inside and missed school. He says it's especially tough for his 14-year-old nephew, who's missing out on core memories with his friends, like his year-end trip to Churchill.
These kids were really looking forward to it. It's upsetting, and the best we can do is say okay, we'll go to the zoo, this and that, but you could sort of tell he was really disappointed.
Head says he is open to having the children continue their education online or through homeschooling until they can go home. Stacy Muskego of Cross Lake has been in a Winnipeg hotel for 2 weeks. She and 8 family members are crowded in 2 rooms. Muskego says 6 of her children are with her.
I feel so homeless. I got nowhere to go. But I'm very thankful that I got a place to stay.
Muskego says she's trying to keep her kids busy by going for walks. The Red Cross is facing criticism this morning from a Northern Manitoba emergency coordinator working with fire evacuees. Laurie Forbes in the RM of Kelsey is helping more than 100 families who are staying in the PAW after being forced from their homes in several surrounding communities. Forbes says they need money. She says many evacuees can't navigate through Red Cross rules.
A lot of people up here don't have email. Some people don't even have a telephone. I've been using my phone to get them registered. Some people just were told today that they have to go to Winnipeg to show identification before they would get any support. Well, Winnipeg is 6 hours away. That's not going to happen.
Forbes says Red Cross officials should come to the PAW as they promised. The organization representing Manitoba outfitters says those hunting or fishing in the backcountry are being as careful as possible. Backcountry travel is limited to permit holders only right now because of Manitoba's state of emergency. Melanie McCarthy at the Lodges and Outfitters Association says she understands the frustration some may have about the rules, but she says outfitters need backcountry to make a living.
These folks are given a very, very short window of time to make their season go and make a living. And so the ones that are allowed to do so by permit are doing so with restrictions in place.
Some of those restrictions include only being out in the bush at certain times, and in some cases, ATVs are not allowed to be used. A 15-year-old Brandon student was sent to hospital in serious condition yesterday after being attacked by an intruder with a sword. Police say a Neelan High School student called about an armed man in the building. Inspector Jason Dupuis says police were on the scene within minutes.
The student stated a male was going crazy and holding a sword. At the same time, staff at Neelan High School were made aware of an armed male. Neelan staff immediately put the school on lockdown and called 911.
Dupuis says a 16-year-old suspect has been arrested. The 15-year-old victim was taken to hospital in serious condition but has since been upgraded to stable. Back on Canadian soil. After 6 months overseas, Sergeant Ryan Gilks gets to play catch with his 4-year-old son. Gilks returned to CFB Shiloh last night after a half-year deployment to Latvia as part of Operation Reassurance. It is Canada's contribution to NATO's efforts to deter aggression in Central and Eastern Europe. The mission involves exercises, training, and building ties between allied forces.
For me, the difference is just like us just being there.
as like a show of force, and like if you want to come across, like you're gonna have to go through all of us, and like not gonna happen kind of deal. So.
Gilk says Operation Reassurance is a display of strength and solidarity between NATO members. You can find more on these stories on our website this morning. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells in our news center this morning. All right, it's time for your regional forecast with Abby.
Good morning. Smoky start in a lot of areas this morning. We're going to see a mix of sun and clouds and warm temperatures tracking it from the south all the way into the north. We still have an air quality warning in effect across parts of southern and northern Manitoba this morning. In the Westman region, we're looking at smoke from wildfires from northern BC and Alberta affecting the Westman region and into the northern part of the province. Moving into the Red River Valley region at this time, we're looking at Winnipeg taking off to a mild start at 12 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Some light morning smoke. Conditions will improve with a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, reaching a warm high of 22 degrees. For the Pembina Valley region, similar to Winnipeg, 10 degrees at this time, also mostly cloudy across northern Winkler, Altoona, all the way down to Morris and the U.S. border. We're expecting sunny skies this morning, then a transition to a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon period with light smoke also still around, high near 23 degrees. In the Westman region, 6 and smoky in Brandon this morning, where we have that special air quality statement in effect due to the fires. That smoke should start clearing by midday, and then the skies will be sunny. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds later in the afternoon. Some smoke still lingering. Today's high for folks in the Westman region, we'll see it around 22 degrees. In the Parkland region, we are seeing some hazy conditions in Dauphin. Temperatures at this time around 9 degrees in surrounding areas. Also expect sunshine this morning, though turning to a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon period. We do have a small chance of showers and thunderstorm with smoky conditions still in that part of the province. Today's high is around 22 degrees. The winds will be coming from the south. For the Interlake region today in Gimli, 7 degrees and cloudy this morning. Expect sunshine through the morning and into the afternoon period. Then we have a slim chance of showers for the Interlake region with light smoke hanging around. Today's high will be around 19 with mild winds coming from the northeast. Over to the Power Flin Flon nearby areas, 8 degrees, mostly cloudy at this time. Also under that air quality warning, which is in effect due to the wildfire smoke. Expect cloudy skies with a slim chance of showers and ongoing smoke still in that region. Today's high around 11 degrees. Winds will be coming from the north. Moving into Thompson, 4 degrees and cloudy in Thompson this morning. Expect mostly cloudy conditions. We have a slim chance of showers also in the forecast there and some haze. Today's high will be around 12 degrees with breezy winds. For the north in Churchill now, we're seeing temperatures around 1. It's sunny there. We saw some fog earlier. That's lifting already. Expect a mix of sun and clouds later. High will be around 10 degrees, and the winds in that part of the province will be coming from the northeast, and it's going to be mild later. So smoke and sun mix across the province today, and it's going to be warm, cooler north. And temperatures right now in Winnipeg sitting at 12 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
With details on your morning commute, Sierra Sanders has popped back in. She's directing the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Still pretty quiet on the commuter line, so things are running smoothly out there. But as we mentioned, some construction on William Avenue. So that's on William Avenue between Sherbrooke Street and Tecumseh Street. So all westbound lanes, the eastbound median lane, and north side sidewalk will be closed. So you can expect delays in that area and maybe try to find an alternate route for that. But if there's anything slowing you down out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
Thank you. Phil DeMont is here next at 20 to 7 with our business news and report. Good morning, Phil.
Morning, Marcy.
So on Tuesday, yesterday, officials from China and the U.S. did announce a trade deal. Does it end the trade war, though, between the two countries?
You know the old adage, don't take a knife to a gunfight. Well, they put away the guns. They still have the knives. This week, officials from both sides said they'd worked out a framework for a trade deal between the U.S. and China. They've been trying to get an accommodation to lower the level of tariffs on each other's exports. Currently, the U.S. slapped about 145% tariff on China's exports makes it basically impossible for American companies to import Chinese products economically. In response, China boosted its tariff rate on American goods by 50%, kind of defines a war. The announcement this week didn't give any details, but it appears the Americans will ease some controls on technology exports, mainly computer chips, to China. And China will scale back its prohibition on the export of rare earth minerals. Those are those materials crucial to new technologies. Here's why I think the deal might be less than meets the eye. Both sides had already increased tariffs on each other's goods already this year. Any deal would appear to be returned to the lower levels, but not to zero or not to, let's say, 2024 levels. There's a worldwide shortage of rare earth minerals to meet basically rising demand. China, despite any kind of deal, might decide to hoard these materials for its own companies. And during the first Trump administration, the two sides signed a similar trade truce. China never followed through on its commitments, mainly because of COVID, but it also is a sign that the Americans might not have as much follow-through on these kind of deals as you'd think.
Well, good luck with the next question, Phil, because we're going to try to get you to square something that Donald Trump said. So the American ambassador to Canada, to start with him, has said that our auto sector has a place in North American car strategy against China. Donald Trump has already said that U.S. doesn't need Canadian cars, though, right?
Yeah, multiple times. But you're right. U.S. Ambassador Peter Hoekstra says we shouldn't worry about that. He was talking to a Toronto automotive audience this week. Said the important thing is to figure out how to mesh Canada's strength in this sector with American capabilities to push back against China. But you have a point in one sense. China produces 1/3 of the world's cars and trucks, a lot of it for the domestic production, but more and more for export. That's compared to less than 10% of the world production in the U.S. Auto is crucial, obviously, to Canada's economy. More than 125,000 Canadians work in the auto parts or the car assembly sectors. But Trump has said he wants cars sold in the U.S. to be built in the U.S., so that doesn't appear to give us a lot of room for Canadian companies. The other problem, Hoekstra's up against Commerce Secretary, or has mentioned it's up to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to work out this kind of a strategy. But Lutnick is a vehement supporter of Trump's tariff strategy, so unless Trump turns, you wouldn't expect Lutnick to turn. We'd be better off if Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent became the point person on any cross-border deal. He seems a little more balanced in this kind of an area. But you're right, it's a problem, and it's going to be a problem for all American ambassadors because the president will say one thing, and they got to come out and kind of make it palatable in some way to the audiences of the countries they're in. Either that or they're just going to be throwing hand grenades left and right.
And briefly, before we look at numbers, the new Nintendo console is selling out at a lot of stores. Why is there a shortage?
Yeah, tariffs might be one reason, but partly it's just the Switch 2 is really popular. Nintendo launched the gaming system this week, sold more than 3.5 million units in the first 4 days, led to Walmart, Best Buy, others slapping out-of-stock signs online. The goal for Nintendo, 12 million units by next March. Analysts think they could hit 20 million. Experts say big feature of the Switch 2 is it lets users flip between handheld and dock devices. Also, a bunch of new games on this. Tariffs are one factor, though, because they're on Japanese goods, just like Chinese goods, and that makes the Switch 2 Nintendo's most expensive gaming set in the U.S. But company just can't produce enough sets to keep up with demand. It was so bad in Japan. Nintendo had a lottery. 2.2 million people joined in. The winner got the right to buy a new console, not a free console, just the ability to line up and buy one.
How are the markets looking this morning?
Right now, getting a little mixed. Germany and the UK up marginally in Europe, but France has turned negative. Hong Kong, the Nikkei in Japan, they're up more than 0.5%. In Asia, oil's up 95 cents, $65.93 a barrel, and the Canadian dollar, it's flat, but at a good level, 73 6/100 of a cent U.S.
All right, thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Marcy.
Phil Lamont from our business desk, filling in for Crystal Lee Ramlakan this morning. It is 6:45 a.m. It is 12 degrees in Winnipeg. There is smoke in the air being reported. However, we're not under an air quality statement like they are in the Flin Flon and in Lynn Lake, the Paw, Brandon, Killarney, Melita, and Verdon this morning. Next on the show, let's return to the wildfire situation and hear more from someone that Heather had in her newscast today. The wildfires have pushed, as you know, nearly 21,000 people from their homes. The Manitoba government is asking people to postpone the non-essential travel to free up hotel space for evacuees. Stacey Muskego is one of those evacuees in a hotel, forced from Pimicikamak Cree Nation 2 weeks ago. She has been staying here in Winnipeg since May 30th.
I just wish we can go home. Prayers to firefighters out there, because our living situation is not what anybody wants to look forward to.
So that being said, without these hotels available, where do you think you might be staying?
If I wasn't one of the lucky ones to get a hotel, I'd probably be sleeping in a big open area where I would not feel safe, no privacy. But I'm glad we lucked out on that. We lucked out on getting a room. I am forever grateful.
When you first got to Winnipeg, though, I understand you didn't have a place to stay. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, when we first got in, we were put on a first flight out from Norrie House, and that was the 7 o'clock flight. And then we got here, we went to Best Western, what we were told to register with Red Cross, and then we were told to wait. So we were stuck at Best Western hallway for almost 10 hours. And all we had to do was just sit around on the floor and watch the hallway get packed with more people, kids crying, being hot, nowhere to sleep, people wanting to shower. I didn't really want to leave in the first place, but we had no choice. I didn't pack everything. I forgot my IDs. I just packed whatever. I was scared. I feared for my mom. My mom is out in Portage La Prairie too. This is my second major evacuation that I can remember. My first one I was probably 10 or 11 years old.
Stacey, the Manitoba government yesterday asked people in Canada or in Manitoba not to make any essential trips to the province to make sure there are hotel rooms available. What do you think of the government asking people to put off any non-essential travel to make sure there are places for people to stay?
Yes, that's what I was wondering too, because in Brandon, a group of people were asked to leave the hotel because there was a baseball tournament going on. And why couldn't they postpone this and let the evacuees stay in a hotel? It's bad enough. We're going through a lot. And then for our people to be asked to leave for an event, and it's bad enough we're homeless. I feel so homeless. I got nowhere to go. But I'm very thankful that I got a place to stay. And since we got here, me and my friends have been sitting out here, watching, looking out for others, for everybody. Make sure that nothing happens to our kids.
That is Josh Crabb from CBC Manitoba in conversation with Stacey Muskegel from Pimicikamak Cree Nation. Forced from her home due to wildfires. She's been staying in a hotel here in Winnipeg since May 30th. Now, Josh is right. The province is asking people to reconsider non-essential travel to free up hotel space. We'll have more on that during the news. Also, I can confirm this morning that we got a press release, and so our director, Sierra, is also trying to get the head of the Canadian School Boards Association on the show today. That is because they canceled their Winnipeg conference. They're going virtual to try to do exactly what the province has asked and free up some space here in Winnipeg. It's 10 to 7 right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio. Thanks for joining all of us. Hopefully your Wednesday morning's going well. Winnipeg's going to be sunny today. Our nice high is 22 degrees. And we are heading into that warmer weather later in June, getting into the summer holiday season. And it's a reminder of some of the safety things we're going to have to think about. Earlier this month, a 38-year-old woman lost her life. She slipped on some rocks in the water. She was dragged by a current into a lake in Whiteshell Provincial Park, and she drowned. And so Dr. Bardwaj is here this morning with our medical column, and it is all about drowning, risk of drowning, and prevention. I actually spoke with him yesterday.
Good morning, Marcy.
So what does the data tell us? How big of an issue is drowning in Canada?
Yeah, I always feel like this is a bigger issue in like hot countries, with lots of beaches like Australia or the US, but water safety still a significant problem in Canada too. According to the Drowning Prevention Research Centre, the good news is that water-related deaths have been decreasing slowly over the past years. The bad news is there's still about 440 deaths on average in Canada each year. And you would think that the highest risk group would be kids, but the highest rates of drowning deaths are in adults over 65, which is odd to me, but 1.6 deaths per 100,000 people. And then adults 50 to 64 and younger adults 20 to 34, rates for both of those groups are about 1.3 deaths per 100,000. And if you look at the stats, males are about 4 times more likely to drown than females. July is the month that usually has the most drowning deaths, even though 2/3 of drownings happen overall in the summer. Canadians die from drowning all year round, partly because of things like falling through ice and stuff like that. If you look at a different set of stats from Health Canada and the Canadian Hospital Injury Reporting and Prevention Program, they say about 56% of all drowning-related cases that were seen in an emergency department happened in a public or private pool. About 20% happened in bathtubs, and just under 20% happened in natural bodies of water like lakes, rivers, ponds, whatever. But wherever it happens, drowning is a preventable thing, and the more we do to prevent it, the better.
Is there evidence, Dr. Bardwaj, that looks at risk factors for drowning?
Yeah, there is actually. And I think the first one that people think of, obviously, is not being able to swim. But it's not all or nothing. People who overestimate their swimming ability or underestimate the water conditions often end up in trouble. For kids under 5, lack of supervision was a big risk factor. And again, it's not all or nothing. Distracted supervision can be just as bad as absent supervision. And then another big risk factor, alcohol. So depending on which studies you look at, up to half of all drowning deaths in Canada involve alcohol. And I've seen research that suggests that the higher the blood alcohol level, the higher the risk of drowning. So it's almost like a dose-dependent kind of thing. And that's whether you're doing stuff in the water, like swimming, or doing stuff on the water, like boating or stand-up paddleboarding or fishing or whatever. So when people are doing stuff on the water, the biggest risk factor is the basic risk factor was not wearing a life jacket, the water being cold, and again using alcohol, and being alone near the water. And just to round out the stats one more time, there's a stat floating around on the internet that says that 70% of people who drown didn't intend to even get wet. And I'm not sure of the accuracy of that, but the point, I think, of that is that sometimes people unintentionally fall into water, and things like using alcohol, not having life jackets, and being alone can have a bigger impact than how well you can swim.
From a medical standpoint, what is going on to a person, in a person's body when they're drowning?
Yeah, it's a whole cascade of things. So technically, drowning is what happens when being submerged or immersed in liquid causes respiratory impairment, so breathing impairment. But that messes up your lungs, but it also messes up your brain. So long story short, if water goes down your windpipe, it of course triggers intense coughing and gasping, and that can lead to inhaling more water. But if water gets down not just your windpipe, but into your lungs, then it washes out the natural chemicals called surfactants that actually help to keep the tiny air pockets in your lungs from collapsing. And so once they collapse, then even if you're able to try to get a breath, you just won't exchange oxygen. And it doesn't take much inhaled fluid to really mess with that surfactant. It's about 1 milliliter to 3 milliliters per kilogram of body weight. So if you think about, for an average 6-year-old, that's about 20 to 60 mils of water. That's like a shot glass of water. And even for a grown adult, that's as little as a quarter cup of water in their lungs. So once that gets in the lungs, it starts messing it up. But the brain part also happens, and that's partly panic. It alters your breathing to the point where people might be gasping to get more air into their lungs, but their lungs are already full, so they sort of forget to breathe out before they breathe in. So that combination of brain and lung issues means that you're at risk for the oxygen levels to drop in your blood. You pass out, you stop breathing, and eventually your heart stops which is, the ultimate end of that. But drowning isn't all or nothing. So it's estimated that for every one person who dies by drowning, there's probably about 10 people who are seen by EMS or taken to the ER with non-fatal drowning. And for sure, there's way more than that in terms of close calls that are never captured in the stats because they never make contact with the healthcare system.
So if you have a close call or a near drowning, should you go to the ER?
Yeah, ideally it would be nice to be able to properly assess your breathing and your heart and, check for injuries that might have happened if you fell into the water or whatever. Because even if you're out of the water, you're not always out of the woods. Remember that lung surfactant that inhaling water can mess up. It can take, 8 hours or longer for your lungs to rebuild that layer of chemicals that helps to keep them from collapsing. So one example is a case that I was talking just yesterday to an ER colleague about. They had seen a very healthy young woman who was doing a triathlon. And she got tangled up with a bunch of people at the start of the swim portion, swallowed a bit of water, coughed and stuff like that, and actually had to hang on to the side of a boat for a few minutes to clear her lungs, but then felt okay and kept going with the race. But then after about half an hour, she actually started to feel short of breath. And she needed to go to the emergency department, and she ended up needing extra oxygen and being observed for like 4 to 6 hours before she felt that her breathing was back to normal. So for anyone who has ongoing symptoms from being submerged in liquid, they should at least be carefully observed for sort of 8 hours or so to make sure that things don't get worse. And if the person was underwater for more than a few seconds, or obviously if they needed CPR or rescue breathing, then for sure they need to be properly and fully checked out in the ER.
All right, Dr. Barbwash, thank you.
My pleasure.
That's my conversation from yesterday with our medical columnist, Dr. Raj Bardwash. It is 3 minutes to 7. Heather Wells is in to update our news headlines and stories this morning as they've been progressing. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a caregiver from Cranberry Portage says the evacuation has been difficult, especially for children. Irvin Head and his nephew and 2 nieces were forced to leave at the end of May. They're in Winnipeg now. Head says the children have been mostly cooped up inside and missed school, and it's been especially tough for his 14-year-old nephew, who he says is missing out on core memories with his friends, like a year-end trip to Churchill. So we'll hear more from him. We also expect to learn more from Brandon Police today after a student was hurt at a school yesterday. A 15-year-old Brandon student sent to hospital in serious condition after being attacked by an intruder at Neelan High School. I'll be back with more news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In the next hour of the show, we've just confirmed we will talk live to the president of the Canadian School Boards Association. They have canceled their Winnipeg conference, in person at least. They're going to be virtual. This is in response to the need for space here in Winnipeg for evacuees, and also for the plea for people to consider not coming to Winnipeg for large events or tourist events. So stay tuned. We're going to talk with him. Also, in the next hour of the show, we will be hearing about playtime as an important part of childhood, but also this morning we understand that there's new information about how not everyone has access. We're going to talk to an advocate about why play is worth protecting, and we'll look into who is being left out. So stay tuned. That's all still ahead. Smoke and 12 degrees in the air in Winnipeg, though no air quality advisory for us. We do have one for the Paw, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, Brandon, Killarney, Melita, Verdon, all of those areas under smoky skies. Today will be sunny in Winnipeg with a high of 22. Right now it's 12 degrees. World Report is next.
Today on The Current. A special show for you today from St. John's. We're on stage with a live audience. An amazing lineup of guests joins us. Everyone from musician Tim Baker to the author Michael Crummy to the comedian Andy Jones. That's coming up on a special edition of The Current, live in St. John's. The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. In Canada, the unemployment rate for new graduates is just over 11%. Outside of the pandemic, that is the highest it has been in a quarter of a century. AI is affecting entry-level jobs. The cost of living crisis has forced older adults to get a second job. And Donald Trump's tariffs are slowing Canada's economy. Paula DeHatchek has more on the challenges facing new grads.
Class of 2025,
Lots of excitement at the University of Calgary Convocation, but also plenty of nerves.
Man, the economy, man, it's hard.
Have you tried looking for a job?
I have. It's bleak.
Basically everybody else I know who's graduated is unemployed.
It's tough out there for students coming out of college, university, and trade school, and a big change from a few years ago when businesses were scrambling to find workers.
It was really high coming out of the pandemic, which probably was never going to last.
Brendan Bernard is a senior economist with the hiring website Indeed. He says eventually those businesses did find people, or they just got used to working short-staffed.
And then following that, the interest rate hikes that the Bank of Canada put into meant to slow that inflation down. That probably also slowed overall economic conditions.
Then Donald Trump returned to the White House, all that back and forth over trade and tariffs putting a damper on the economy. Tim Lang is with Yes, a national organization that helps young people find jobs.
When businesses have uncertainty, they sometimes will pause hiring.
It's not clear just how long the situation will last, but back at the university, there is still a sense of youthful optimism.
Keep trying. Don't give up. It'll happen eventually.
Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Calgary.
Protests against immigration raids are spreading across the U.S.
What's your name?
A man is taken into custody by the NYPD last night. He is one of hundreds of protesters on the streets in Lower Manhattan. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called in the National Guard in anticipation of growing protests across the state. Many of the demonstrations are in response to the protests in Los Angeles. That city now has a nighttime curfew. Steve Futterman is there.
It was another tense day here in Los Angeles. Protesters gathering in the downtown area attempting to close streets.
The Los Angeles Police Department, get off of the street and onto the sidewalk.
Late in the afternoon, dozens rushed onto the 101 freeway, briefly shutting it down. That was enough for city officials. Soon afterwards, LA Mayor Karen Bass announced a nighttime shutdown in the central part of downtown.
I have declared a local emergency and issued a curfew for downtown Los Angeles.
She said the 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew is expected to stay in effect for several days.
Many businesses have now been affected or vandalized.
Last night when 8 o'clock came, most people quickly left, but some refused. There were some arrests. Meanwhile, the war of words between Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom continued yesterday. Trump suggesting his deployment of the National Guard and Marines is helping Los Angeles.
If we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning.
But the California governor blasted the deployments.
We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces. Not in LA, not in California, not anywhere.
The curfew may reduce tensions between police and protesters. It won't affect tensions between Trump and Newsom. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Billionaire Elon Musk says he regrets some of his posts about U.S. President Donald Trump. The two former allies had a very public breakup last week. Insults were hurled on social media. The Tesla CEO called Trump's tax and spending bill a disgusting abomination. And he leveled other unproven allegations against the U.S. president. But now Musk says some of his posts went too far. He has not said which ones. Tesla's shares are now up 2.5% in pre-market trading. Quebec's government says it is taking the tuberculosis situation in the province's north very seriously, but it is not declaring a public health emergency. That is despite calls from Nunavut's 14 mayors. Nearly half of their communities are currently battling an outbreak. Samuel Watt has more.
The 14 mayors who signed the letter say tuberculosis rates are more than 1,000 times higher than the rest of Quebec. Ivuivik Mayor Adami Kalingo is one of the signatories.
We should have quality services in terms of us as an Indigenous peoples living in an environment where there are no roads connecting us to southern facilities.
Cases in the region are at record-setting levels, according to Yasin Cholikov. The clinical lead on infectious diseases at Nunavut's health board says tuberculosis, while curable, can kill if left untreated, and he worries that cases will grow if nothing changes.
When I hear of people calling for a public health emergency, I hear a cry for help.
Faz Ahmed Khan is a respirologist who works with Nunavut's health services.
I think the mayors
have raised a very legitimate demand.
He says there's been a chronic shortage of medical resources in Nunavik for years. They need more staff, more laboratory space, and X-ray machines.
In some communities, people have to fly just to get an X-ray to get diagnosed for TB.
In a statement, Quebec's Health Minister Christian Dubé says he will continue to follow recommendations from public health experts. Neither he nor his department have committed to declaring a public health emergency just yet. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Church bells ring out in Graz, Austria. People are gathering in the city's central square where a memorial is growing. The country is beginning 3 days of mourning for the victims of yesterday's school shooting. Police say a 21-year-old man killed 10 people at the school. 12 others were injured before the shooter took his own life. Police say he was a former student at the school, but they say they are still investigating a motive. In Squamish, BC, many people are nervously watching a nearby wildfire and preparing to evacuate the area if it comes any closer.
It's really scary. Like, it's just so close to home.
Fire in town this early in the season, you're worried about what's happening. You got a lot of hot months left, and not a lot of rain on the forecast right now.
It sparked up and it went fast up the hill. So we're all pretty nervous.
Canada's wildfire seasons have been getting worse, and as more homes and businesses are threatened, some people are choosing to fight the fires themselves. Aaron Collins has more on that story.
This stretch of shore along Lower Fishing Lake in Saskatchewan, one worth fighting for.
We're still fighting there. It's right at Rangers Beach now.
And in late May, that's just what happened. As 2 wildfires approached the resort community in the Narrow Hills Provincial Park, a group of locals stayed behind, digging in to beat back the flames.
When things got close to home here, it was all hands on deck to come here and save the cabin.
Travis Craik, one of a handful of men who fought a wall of fire here.
Dad and I, and then 3 other cabin owners, Rick, Lenny, and Greg.
The neighbors working around the clock, pumping water from the lake to keep the fire burning just yards from their cabins at bay. The cleanup has now begun. Every cabin here, nearly 100, saved. But Craik says similar firefights are going on across Canada.
There's places in northern Ontario, northern Alberta, northern BC, all burning right now. And you hear of all the other locals that are sticking around. So it's not just us. There's so many people right now that are fighting for their own houses and their own communities and forests.
There are currently more than 100 wildfires burning out of control across the country. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Lower Fishing Lake, Saskatchewan.
A debate competition for grade 9 students in South Australia is stirring up controversy, and it hasn't even happened yet. One of the topics the students will debate next week is whether the tradwife movement is good for women. Tradwife content is very popular online right now.
I'm about to have 4 kids under 5 and I'm only 23, so let's talk about it.
A man's home is his castle, so he should be treated as a king.
They just want to be at home with their kids. They want to have husbands and they want to take care of their husbands. They want to cook and they want to clean and they want to wear dresses.
Tradwives have become associated with the anti-feminist movement, and the lifestyle is promoted by self-proclaimed misogynist Andrew Tate. But the debate competition says it did not know about the dark side of the tradwife movement. After some very angry phone calls, it has issued an unusual clarification to parents. It says the term should only be taken as a synonym for stay-at-home parent. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime. CBCNews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us on Information Radio here live on CBC in downtown Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at the show, and it is smoky in the city, though no air quality advisory for Winnipeg. We will get into more of the weather in just a moment. This hour on the program, because of the evacuees in the south from northern Manitoba due to the wildfire situation, as you may have been hearing in our news in the last couple of days, the Manitoba government has asked that all non-essential travel be halted. People rethink, tourism in Manitoba. Well, this hour we're going to hear from about a conference that has been cancelled now. It's moved virtually online. This is the Canadian School Boards Association cancelling a big conference that was coming up in July. We're going to talk to the president live this hour on the program. In addition, this hour on the show, still talking about wildfires, we're going to hear from an uncle who's worried that his young family members are away from home because of wildfire and they're missing out on their education. So we're going to look at that aspect of what's being lost. So stay tuned for that. And then I just want to mention one story we'll have coming up in moments here. Playtime is an important part of childhood as well, but not everyone has access. We're going to talk to an advocate about why play is needing to be protected. Heather Wells is standing by now with other stories and headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the mayor of Flin Flon calls it a disgusting wildfire scam. A website claiming to be a Flin Flon clothing store says its warehouse was destroyed in wildfire, but that a few final pieces are left. A closer look, though, at the site, and it's clear the story is a fake. George Fontaine says no buildings inside the city of Flin Flon have burned. We'll hear more about this. As well, we expect to learn more from Brandon Police today. After a student was hurt at a school yesterday, a 15-year-old Brandon student was sent to hospital in serious condition after being attacked by an intruder with a sword. Police say a Neelan High School student called about an armed male in the building. Those stories and more coming up at 7:30.
Abby, how's the forecast?
It's shaping to be a warm day with a mix of sun and clouds and, of course, smoke across the province. We do have that air quality warning in effect for areas in the southwest, smoke affecting Brandon all the way down to the Turtle Mountain Park. And, of course, up north, we're looking at Flin Flon, the Par, all the way down to Lynn Lake areas. We see smoke and hazy conditions in that part of the province. Right now, Winnipeg, 12 under, mostly cloudy conditions. The sun peeking through already. A bit of smoke still hanging around. That should fade later today with sunshine breaking through the clouds, and we will see highs around 22 in the city today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
We have Sierra Sanders, who's going to be indirecting the show for, this last time I'll say filling in for Corey, because you're now going to be here for a few months.
Sorry, Corey.
We're thinking of you, but
we are.
Right now we're thinking of Sierra, who's here directing and also covering the commute. What's up?
Yes, it has been quiet on the commuter line, so things are running smoothly out there. But as we've been mentioning, some construction on William Avenue to note. So that's on William Avenue between Sherbrooke Street and Tecumseh Street. All westbound lanes, the eastbound median lane and north side sidewalk will be closed. So you can expect delays in that area and try to find an alternate route if possible. This is expected to open back up tomorrow, June 12th. But if there's anything else getting in your way out there or slowing you down, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
Well, if your childhood was full of games and activities, you are lucky. That is not the reality for a lot of children all around the world, and for many girls in particular. Play isn't part of childhood. We're talking about this because today is actually the International Day of Play, and it aims to raise awareness about the importance of play for children's well-being. Anjum Sultana is Director of Youth Leadership and Policy Advocacy with International Canada, and here to talk about play. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here. So how do you define play, first of all? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that looks different for everyone. And it's all about really expressing and exploring everything that brings you joy and happiness. So for us, play is not just fun. It's a human right. And it's something that can be physical. So it could be biking, swimming. It could be playing on the playground. It can be cognitive, so think puzzles and board games. I, for one, am a big fan of Monopoly. And it can be artistic, so drawing, art, singing, drama club. So all are important forms of play. What we see is when it comes to play, it's not just fun, but it helps you learn. It helps you form friendships. It also helps you teaches you skills you can't get from a textbook, like teamwork, critical thinking skills, collaboration. So all very important when it comes to play.
I mentioned girls in the world having fewer opportunities to play than boys. Can you elaborate on why that is, and also maybe on more on what they're missing out on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I say that when it comes to play, play is the launching pad for leadership. So really allowing yourself to reach your full potential, play is part of the puzzle. And so when it comes to girls, we see this around the world, and here in Canada, there's many different barriers. So it could be around physical safety. So are the places of play well maintained, well lit? Is it safe to get there? Is there the ability to get there at all hours of the day, for example? It's also a matter of emotional safety. So
we've just lost you there, and I apologize. If you can still hear us, we'll give you a moment. And I think we probably have lost our connection. So we may take a second with this.
So I'm a big believer. If you can...
We're just losing you here.
Oh, sorry. I was saying play is about also representation. So if you can see it, you can be it. So sometimes when there's not diverse role models, such as women as coaches in different play spaces, including sports, that can also be a barrier. So we advocate for more diverse role models as well.
I want to ask you about different cultures, because obviously, there's varying ideas about what's expected of children. How can we make sure that international advocacy, like we're talking about for play, for all the reasons you've mentioned, the developmental, what it gives to kids, how do we make sure that when we're having this conversation, we're not sort of imposing external standards of what childhood should look like on all different families, because there's so many different people have come to this from different places?
Absolutely. Such an excellent question. So I think about my own journey. I was born in India. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and then I came to Canada. So play looked different across those different contexts, but there's also a lot of similarities. And for us, the most important point is that the right to play is universal. How you play is expressed based on family, culture, community. And so our role as advocates is not to prescribe any one way of playing, but to really ensure that it's safe, it's inclusive, and where children and communities can think about what does meaningful play look like for them. So it's not about dictating outcomes, but really amplifying choices and voices.
In Canada, how accessible is play? What does that look like here?
So what we know is that there's about 1 million girls in Canada who are missing out on the benefits of sport, which is a form of play. And what happens is you might start off in the sport, you might start off in the play activity, but during adolescence or puberty, you might not feel that sense of belonging. So you might leave it, even though we know it has such valuable benefits for mental health and well-being. And we also see that sometimes it might be due to financial reasons. So at Plan International Canada, we offer a lot of different programs that incorporate play-based learning. And for us, the most important thing is to make it free of cost or low barrier so everyone can access, no matter who they are or where they live.
All right, in our last minute, how do you play and why do you do it?
Oh, so I mentioned I love Monopoly. I love swimming and biking. So those all give me forms of joy. And my hope is that every single child gets to laugh, learn, and lead. And what I encourage folks is, if they want that too, is to check out plancanada.ca to learn more.
I play volleyball and I golf, and I do it, I do it for fun, first of all, and camaraderie. Yeah. I've always been involved in sport, but also I'm a bit of a hothead. I come quick to frustration. I'm competitive. I get mad at myself. And it's taught me to sort of, learn to deal with disappointment, interaction, perseverance, and just calming down in the moment. So many things to learn there that are, as you mentioned, also leadership skills.
Absolutely. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great International Day of Play. And it's so great to hear about how you're doing that in your life.
I'd love people to call us and tell us why they play. Thank you, Anjum.
Thank you. Take care. Bye, everyone.
So that's Anjum Sultana on with us live this morning with Plan International Canada. We're talking about play. And if you do want to call us and tell us how you play, why you play, what it does for you and your character building, and also what gets in the way of play when you think about your own childhood, because we're all talking about sort of play is seen as, coming when you come, like I'm from a privileged background. So for me, play was always available in there. Maybe it wasn't, but maybe you've made it available. So anything to do with play and why you love it. 788-3205, 788-3205. We can take some calls and get them on later in the show.
They challenged Manitoba high school students to champion the environment with a video. Now you can see the results. The Climate Change Connections Youth Video Challenge, sponsored by CBC. Get inspired by the winning videos from River East Collegiate, St. John's Ravenscourt, and Louis Riel Arts and Technology by visiting cbc.ca/Manitoba/community to watch.
Well, we're just talking about play at 7:21 a.m. and it is also, by the way, Bike Week. So another way to play and be active is to get on your bike, use it for commuting or just go out for a leisurely ride. I can't resist asking Abby for a bit of an update, and it's actually not about the morning commute. It is an update on his cutie patootie little nephew who is how old?
He's 9. He's going to be 9.
And he has been learning how to bike, and you've been helping him how to cycle.
He's still practicing how to get off the training wheels.
Okay.
And I have one problem with that. I want to train him the way I fall off the bike, get hurt, and all of those stuff. But his mom is always present. And
his mom is not a believer in a skinned knee?
No. And rule number 1, you're teaching a young one how to ride bicycles. Tell their moms to take a walk.
Says the uncle.
Yeah,
by
that's
the way.
uncle rule number 1. Mom, please take a break. He's always looking at his mom for validation of he's gonna fall off, and I'm like, no, eyes on me, dude. Eyes on me. But the mom is like, oh, take it easy, don't let him. I'm like, oh no. He needs to fall off the grass and, get back up, look up, and stay calm.
Perseverance.
But he feeds off his mom's vibes of him falling off, and he's already scared.
It's hard to be the mom, though. It's hard to watch your little one and let go, and
That's why the first rule: never let the mom be present when you're teaching them how to ride a bicycle.
Invite the uncle.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Abby. I love that little story. He's so cute. If you've ever seen Abby's nephew. All right. It is in Winnipeg. Time now for a quick look at our forecast and the air quality warnings. I keep mentioning that Winnipeg's not under one. I just want to mention that the areas where there is a challenge this morning, still around the Paw, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, Leaf, and Puck, where the fires are burning. Also, though, in the city of Brandon this morning, an air quality statement's been issued. Also, Killarney, Melita, and around Verdun, Souris. So just take care if you're around those areas if you're going to be outside today. Well, before morning sports today, we have a little bit of music from Winnipeg's Field Guide. This one's called Life I Wanted.
Woke up with the daylight after a good day and a long night. I'm tired, but it's alright. I'm living again. Loading up the rental and trying to be gentle with my sister on the telephone. She's feeling down again. I got the life that I wanted, and I'll have some time in August. You're out of my sight, but you're sure on my mind. I just missed the pool hour, so I settled for a hot shower, a single cigarette and a happy hour all to myself. Tomorrow hit the highway, Denver, then an airplane, Calgary, then a time change, and I'll be back at home with you. I got the life that I wanted, and I'll have some time in August. You're out of my sight, you're sure on my mind, I promise. And when I'm away, I hope you don't feel like Yeah, when I'm away, I hope you don't feel like it's part-time, babe. I got the life that I wanted, and I'll have some time in August. You're out of my sight, but you're sure on my mind. I promise. You're out of my sight, but you're sure on my mind. I promise.
Winnipeg's field guy almost stepped on the last lyrics there. That tune's called Life I Wanted. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on CBC this morning. Wherever you're listening from, or if you're watching our YouTube stream, thanks for being part of the show. Next on the program, it's time for Morning Sports. Paul McGowan is still in for Scott this morning. Hi there, Paul.
Hi, Marcy.
So the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were on the eve of the season opener. How's the team feeling? What are we hearing?
Excitement, really, to finally get the season started. That week one bye has meant having to wait a little bit longer for meaningful football. Now, one person especially excited for tomorrow is Trey Vaval. This is the rookie defensive back's second crack at pro football. He was in training camp with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, he's not only getting reps in the secondary, he's also going to be the I wanted to say week one, the week two, I guess, kick returner. And he does have experience on special teams, returned to both a punt and a kick for touchdowns in college. Head coach Mike O'Shea was asked if he spoke not only to Vaval, but to all of his rookies ahead of their first CFL action tomorrow.
Not really. I think maybe those are conversations for afterwards. They have to have fun doing it too. I mean, but that's part of the conversation over time, right? They know that. And then they've already played 2 preseason games. I know you could say it's not the regular season and didn't count, whatever, but it matters to them, right? So they've already played 2 pro football games.
O'Shea was asked if he remembers his first his CFL debut. This is how far back it was. It was July 10th, 93. He was a member of the Hamilton Tiger Cats facing the Sacramento Gold Miners.
Wow. 93.
Yeah. That's before my memory.
It's after I graduated high school. There we go. What do they say? I'm dating myself? Let's move on. Let's talk about the Blue Jays. Good news. They got a win last night in St. Louis, right?
And and they're one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. And it's their offense that's driving this recent hot streak, a 10-9 slugfest in St. Louis. And all of a sudden, the Blue Jays are in 3rd place in the American League. The vision for this team is looking a lot clearer than it did last year. And those 2024 struggles are something that Chris Bassett brought up after the game.
Sometimes you got to go through some to really fix issues. And I feel like last year, it exposed a lot of things and tested a lot of people, and I feel like everyone from Mark Ross to the very, very bottom guy in our organization has responded the right way. And now you have guys that are really caring for each other, being on the same page and just going and trying to win a ball game.
Bassett with a shout out for general manager Ross Atkins, who has not gotten a lot of love from Jays fans lately, although that is slowly starting to change. The Jays will try to keep it going today, an afternoon start in St. Louis. And locally, the Winnipeg Goldeyes snapped their 3-game losing skid. Canadian reliever Trevor Bridgen struck out the side in the 9th inning to secure that victory. The Goldeyes aim for the series win tonight. First pitch at 6:35.
Looks like it's going to be really nice, too. So clearing, low of 10, and the day's going to be sunny all day. So that's a good day for ball. To the Canadian swim trials, a good day yesterday for someone besides Summer McIntosh.
And to be clear, it was also a good day for Summer McIntosh.
Most days are for her.
Yeah, nearly broke a 50-year-old world record in the 200-meter butterfly. But yes, there are other swimmers in Victoria. It's been a nice week for Penny Alexiak. She had a down year last year, didn't qualify for any of the individual events in Paris. But at these Canadian trials, she's been outstanding. She's already qualified for 2 events at next month's Worlds.
I think I've raced a lot more this year than I have in the last 2-3 years. So it's all going pretty well, and I'm excited to get out there this summer. There was a lot of ups and downs with racing and training and everything, and there was a lot of time where I wasn't really doing it because I wanted to, and now I'm showing up every day because I want to be there, and it's always fun for me.
Now, part of Alexiak not wanting to do it where, injuries playing a factor, surgeries playing a factor. Nice to see her back in form ahead of next month's Worlds in Singapore.
All right. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is Paul McGowan with our sports on CBC and on Information Radio here live in Winnipeg. Thanks for being with us. We're heading into news time at 7:30. I want to mention that your morning commute's been pretty good so far. Bike week continues, so watch for all those cyclists out there. We do know that in William, between Sherbrooke and Tecumseh, the westbound lanes and sidewalk are affected. I think this goes through till tomorrow, so you'll want to watch through that area. It could be slow. 788-3093 if you need us. And right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. A little bit of smoke out there. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon. Along with that smoke, a high today of 22. A website claiming to represent a Flin Flon clothing store says its warehouse was destroyed in the wildfires. But a closer look at that site shows it's a fake. CBC I-Team's Caroline Bargout reports.
It's called Manitoba Mode. On the landing page, there's a photo of a building on fire and text saying, "This is the final goodbye." The company claims to have been located in Flin Flon for 15 years, but now wildfires have destroyed the warehouse. All we have left are a few final pieces, and this is your last chance to own a part of Manitoba Mode before it's gone forever, says the website. But if you take a closer look, it's a fake. Some of the photos are AI generated, including one where Manitoba is spelled with an E at the end instead of an A. George Fontaine is the mayor of Flin Flon.
There's enough bad things going on in Flin Flon right now that nature has provided for us. We don't need this kind of behavior from people around. So, no, it's disgusting. It's a terrible thing.
David Gerhard is a computer science professor at the University of Manitoba. He says AI is getting better every day.
It's always improving. It's always getting more capabilities and being integrated into more aspects of our interaction.
He says people should always look for other ways to verify websites of companies they aren't familiar with, because nowadays they could be a scam. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Children are among the 21,000 wildfire evacuees in Manitoba. A caregiver from Cranberry Portage worries about what their evacuation means for their education and socialization away from school. Irvin Head cares for his nephew and two nieces. They were forced out of their home at the end of May and have been staying in Winnipeg ever since.
It's necessary for the kids to be able to have those activities and have some sort of normalcy, because if we're stuck in where we're renting and there's nothing for them to do, they lost that sort of schedule. They say, "Oh, I miss my school friends. I wish I could go to school again."
Head says his nephew is also missing out on core memories, including his grade 8 school trip to Churchill that has been canceled. He says he is open to getting learning materials from the school so kids can resume their studies. A Northern Emergency Coordinator is critical of Red Cross rules to help fire evacuees. Lori Forbes at the RM of Kelsey is helping more than 100 families who are staying in the PAW after being forced from their homes in several surrounding communities. Forbes says they need money.
Continually buying groceries for, in some cases, 20, 25 people that are in houses. So it is a burden, when you don't have the money for day to day and now you're not working, you're not getting that check and you're still having to pay for food. So at some point, Red Cross needs to get up here.
Forbes says the Red Cross has told some people they must drive 6 hours to Winnipeg to prove their identity in person. She says others don't have bank accounts or email to access Red Cross funds. We expect to learn more from Brandon Police today after a student was hurt at a school yesterday. Police were called to Neelan High School after an intruder with a weapon got into the building. Inspector Jason Dupuis says a student called police to say a male with a sword was, quote, going crazy. The school was put into lockdown, and Dupuis says police arrived within minutes, arresting the suspect.
They located the male suspect, who was still in possession of the sword, inside the school. Responding officers assessed the situation, and a conducted energy weapon was deployed.
The 16-year-old suspect is in police custody. Dupuis says the 15-year-old victim had stab wounds to the chest, forearms, hands, and thighs. He was taken to hospital in serious condition, but has been upgraded to stable. Home again after 6 months away. Hundreds of soldiers returning to CFB Shiloh after a deployment in Latvia. Sergeant Ryan Gilk says they were part of an ongoing mission called Operation Reassurance. It was part of Canada's contribution to NATO's measures to discourage aggression in Central and Eastern Europe.
We are making a difference. It is nice we're there and see how other nations do things, especially for me being an artilleryman, seeing how the other nations' artillery does stuff.
The Canadian Armed Forces says Operation Reassurance involves about 1,000 members from the Army, Navy, and Air Force. That makes it the single largest overseas operation for Canada right now. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Let's go to Abby Adeyemi now. It's time for your regional forecast on CBC. What's up?
Good morning. Once again, we're expecting mostly warm and hazy conditions with smoke still lingering in both the north and the southern parts of the province. We still have air quality warnings in place for parts of southern and northern Manitoba. In the Westman region, we're looking at Brandon all the way, tracking it through the Turtle Mountains down to Verdun. Smoke from the fires in northern BC and Alberta is bringing hazy skies and reduced visibility to that part of the province. Now, the smoke lingering should be clearing as we get into the day. Tracking it further north, special air quality also in effect for the Power Flin Flon and nearby areas. Smoke from local fires still hanging around with air quality going up and down depending on the conditions in that region. And the smoke can be harmful to your health. If you have issues breathing, I'd advise you limit your outdoor time. For the Red River Valley region at this time, in Winnipeg, we are at 12 degrees with light smoke outside. The sun trying to make its way through those cloudy conditions outside. As the day warms, we're expecting a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 22 degrees. The winds will be strong at some point coming from the south and making it a windy afternoon. For the Pembina Valley region, similar to Winnipeg, from Morden all the way down to Morris and the Emerson border, we're looking at mostly cloudy skies with the sun also peeking through. 11 degrees this morning. It's going to turn partly cloudy and a mix of sunny conditions in the afternoon. Highs also around 22. Westman region, Brandon is sitting at 6 with smoky skies at this time. The smoke from the wildfire is reducing visibility and it's expected to ease later today. Expect a sunny morning for that part of the province, transitioning into a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon period, high 22. In the Parkland region, currently hazy and 11 in Dauphin and surrounding areas. It was sunny earlier on, but now we're going to see a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon with a slight chance of showers and a thunderstorm in the mix. The smoke may continue through the day. We're going to see high of 22 degrees. In Gimli, 9 degrees at this time. Cloudy right now for the Interlake region. Expect some sunny conditions to break through. Then a transition to a mix of sun and clouds. A slight chance of showers in the forecast, though some smoke may still be present in the air. We'll see highs around 19 degrees. Then tracking condition into the north. We're looking at the Power Flin Flon nearby areas, tracking it all the way down to Gillam. We're seeing 8 degrees at this time with mostly cloudy skies. Air quality warning also remains in effect due to the fire from the smoke, due to wildfire smoke, which can affect visibility and, of course, the health of a lot of people. Expect these cloudy skies today. There's a slim chance of showers in the forecast and continued smoke. High near 11 degrees. And then going all the way to Thompson at this time where we're seeing 4 degrees. Today will be mostly cloudy with a slim chance of showers this morning and hazy skies through the day. The winds will be coming from the north and it gets breezy at some point. We'll see high around 12. Further north in Churchill, it is still one cool there. Cloudy morning with fog patches spotted here and there. That should lift. Then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds, high of 10 degrees. The winds will shift from light northeast this morning and then it's going to be mild later today. So it's going to be sun and smoke mixed together across the province today. It's going to be warm in the south and cooler up north. Winnipeg, we're sitting at 12 degrees at this time.
I have to keep reminding myself it's June and it is also for grad season for everyone out there. And it's, it's busy times and getting to the end of the year. And then, of course, all the evacuees out of school. We actually have a story coming up. We're going to elaborate on what we've heard in the news. So it's kind of nice to have a sunny day here in Winnipeg for all of the, we all live here. But then for all the evacuees that are in town, if you want to get out and about and do something today, it might be a good day.
True. true.
Sounds like. All right, let's find out about the morning commute. Sierra Sanders is in with that.
Good morning. Still pretty quiet on the commuter line. Haven't received any calls, so things must be running smoothly out there from what our fellow commuters are seeing. But something worth noting, southbound St. Mary's past St. Anne's, there's been a collision and emergency crews are blocking the southbound median lane. So keep right to pass and proceed with caution in that area. And as we've been mentioning throughout the show, some construction on William Avenue. That's on William Avenue between Sherbrooke Street and Tecumseh Street. All westbound lanes, the eastbound median lane and north side sidewalk will be closed. You can expect delays in that area and try to find an alternate route if possible, but that construction should clear up tomorrow. If there's anything you're seeing or something that's slowing you down out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sierra. Well, it is 20 to 8 now, and let's return to a story that you may have, as I alluded to, heard a bit about in the news. It is about school. As we have more than 21,000 people who are here evacuated from their communities or staying in the south due to wildfires, a lot of those people are young people. They're school-aged children. They should be, as I mentioned, finishing up right now, and they're not able to. Irvin Head is concerned about it. He's an evacuee from Cranberry Portage. He's been the caregiver to his sister's children for several years. CBC's Rosanna Hempel spoke to Irvin at an evacuation center in Winnipeg.
The way the Red Cross is handling it, it's good in some ways, but it's also really frustrating in others, where like they've been really helpful in that they've given out free passes to the zoo. So last week we went to the zoo, and there was other places, but of course that sort of gets picked up quick. There's multiple communities, there's like thousands of people that need this stuff, and it's necessary for the kids to be able to like have those activities and like have some sort of normalcy, because if we're stuck in where we're renting and there's nothing for them to do, they lost that sort of like schedule. Like they say, oh, I miss my school friends, I wish I could go to school again. And they're like, they need that sort of stuff.
How are they doing?
They're doing okay. And that's another thing we were worried about, is that, like I said, the oldest is about to go into high school. When this evacuation stuff happened last year, the kids that were like going to graduate from high school last year, they couldn't do the graduation ceremony. So that had to get postponed into the fall. But because some of those kids were already like lined up for university, community college, UCN, they couldn't make it. So that's something that would have been like a highlight of their life, like their graduation ceremony from high school, that they would have planned for the whole last senior year. They wouldn't be able to attend it, because you only really graduate high school like once. You only get that one chance to like bask in your achievement, and especially for kids like who have to come in from outside communities and who might not go into post-secondary. It's very important for them. That's something that they could have missed out on because of the way the evacuations were. That was another thing. They were lined up for their grade 8's like school trip to go to Churchill. And it was a couple days, I think it was the 27th or the 28th, they were going to leave, and it had to get canceled because of the fires. And he was pretty upset about that. And I imagine that's not just like our problem, it's going to be every kid's problem who had to like miss out on that sort of stuff. Because personally, I remember my grade 8 trip, it was fun. We went to Winnipeg, we went to Quebec City, Montreal, and it was a big highlight, like I said. And having to miss these sort of things that these kids were really like looking forward to is like, it's upsetting. And the best we can do is say like, okay, we'll go to the zoo, this and that, but you could sort of tell he was really disappointed.
Are you also concerned about, just how long they might be out of school and the impact on their learning?
Yeah, you sort of get that flash in your mind of like, if this continues on for longer than they planned, how is this going to like pan out? Are we going to have to transfer the kids if we have to like stay here for longer? I know it's the summer coming up, but they could like do summer school, and if something like that were to happen to us, where we'd have to say like, oh, we're here for too long and the school will need to close, is like, the school's a big highlight for those guys. It's where that's their favorite part of the day, they say, which is like, I don't know what that says about me. So because of the recent like pandemic, I feel like schools are more easily equipped for remote learning. So if push comes to shove and we have to stay here for however long they feel like having us stay here, I think like deploying that would be the best way, instead of like having the hassle of physically like transferring kids into schools. And I don't know who would be responsible. Probably the schools themselves. But I think that would be like worst case scenario, that would be the best.
That was the CBC's Rosanna Hempel in conversation with wildfire evacuee Irvin Head. They were outside the Billy Mosienko Arena, where a lot of people are continuing to register as evacuees. Irvin comes from Cranberry Portage. The kids in his family, the students, have been out of school, he says, for almost 2 weeks.
CBC Music, live at Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada. An absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. All right. A new season of episodes now available. Bahamas, The Glorious Sons, The Sadies, Field Guide, Serena Ryder, O.C. Elliott, and Chantal Kreviazek. CBC Music, live at Massey Hall. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Still ahead this half hour, we're going to hear how the Canadian School Boards Association has canceled a Winnipeg conference. This is because of wanting to make space for wildfire evacuees here in the city. Next on the show, though, speaking of music excellence, the Polaris Prize is celebrating its 20th year this year. The names of the 40 records on the long list just came out yesterday. One of the albums is Verbatim. Now, this is by a Palestinian-Canadian artist named Nemesis, and since her record came out, she's won 2 Junos. She's won Artist of the Year from Women in Music Canada. So if you don't know her music, you probably will pretty soon. Here's a taste. This is called You Wore It Better.
Don't get close, you're gonna hate me. 'Cause once you know what's lying underneath, judgment shows I'm not deceiving. And you chose how you want to see me. And this sweater I'm wearing, you asked the row, I don't know, but these are 501 jeans, wash out the hue, might make it better. They'll look cool on anyone but me. You wore it better than I could ever. Nothing's gonna change the fact that you can wear it better. You wore it better than I could ever. Nothing's gonna change the fact that you can wear me stylish shoes. I bought them 'cause of you. I got it right. Nothing's gonna change the fact that you can wear it better. Nothing's gonna change the fact that you. Nothing's gonna change the fact that you. Nothing's gonna change the fact that you can wear it better.
Nemesis, the tune's called You Wore It Better on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. On the album, Verbatim by Nemesis has been longlisted for the Polaris Prize. The list came out yesterday, the long list. There are 40 albums on that list, so lots of music to listen to. You can check out cbc.ca/music if you want to add to your playlist this morning with some good tunes. It is 11 minutes now to 8 o'clock on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Show is Information Radio, your morning show on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, let's return to developing news. Just on Monday, we heard from MLA Lisa Naylor, who's responsible for Manitoba's emergency management organization, urging people to reconsider non-essential travel and event plans within the province to make way for wildfire evacuees.
Manitobans want to help. People have been asking us all the time, how can we help? So this goes beyond a donation to the Red Cross or dropping off some clothes. It says I can help by not taking up a hotel room right now when we need it.
Well, 300 spaces have just been freed up because the Canadian School Boards Association has canceled their Winnipeg conference. They're moving it virtual. And with us to talk about that is my next guest. Alan Campbell is the president of the Manitoba and Canadian School Boards Association. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcy.
So tell me what went into the decision. Obviously this is a conference supposed to happen in July, hundreds of people. Why did you decide to cancel?
It's something that we've been watching closely for, days and weeks now as the wildfire situation escalated and the number of evacuees that needed a place to stay certainly continued to go up. We've heard from our member boards. We have school board trustees and literally all of the staff and their divisions that are all evacuated from their communities in places like Flin Flon and Cranberry Portage and other locations. And we had also started to hear some inquiries from them. And so the clip that you just played from Minister Naylor was an important point in the decision-making process to say, non-essential travel, this is non-essential travel. It's a really important event for us, but we're able to pivot and offer some really important learning on our public education system and Indigenous education virtually. So let's do that.
And that was the focus, as you mentioned there, Indigenous education. And obviously a lot of our, communities, these are Indigenous students that are out of school. We just actually heard from a family. So I'm guessing that might have also factored into making this decision maybe a bit easier.
Absolutely. The Manitoba School Boards Association is the host of the event, and we pride ourselves on our ongoing work on Indigenous education, on making sure that the calls to action for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission on education are a continuous part of the work of our boards and part of public education here in Manitoba in partnership with our First Nations partners and the provincial government, the Ministry of Education. That holds true to the National Association as well. It's a key strategic priority for the CSBA. And so when we consider the communities that are being impacted, most significantly by the wildfires and the evacuations, school boards and school divisions are doing many different things to help both in the communities that are being directly impacted and also in places like Winnipeg and Brandon and Thompson where evacuees find themselves. So it did, the opportunity to change the way we're functioning this event and to free up, literally the entire Delta Hotel for the first week of July, which, as we understand, does start to make things more clear for those that are looking to book rooms from today going forward, understanding that there's still a lot of, lack of clarity in terms of when a lot of evacuees will be able to go home.
Mm-hmm. We are hearing, though, that it could be some time depending on which community you're from. So we're taking it day by day, but you're quite right. July's around the corner, even though it seems like it's a few weeks away on the calendar. So this was supposed to be July 3rd and 4th. Obviously, we've heard from different groups, the Winnipeg Chamber weighing in, saying they totally support, the call to help, but they also, talk about how difficult it can be. Events that are big, conferences like yours, that they're planned well in advance. What's it been like just logistically trying to change this for you?
It's been very disappointing, Marcy. We've been planning this event for 4 years, and so we were very excited. Last year, the Congress was in downtown Toronto. Next year, it's in Whistler. And we're very excited to go to places like that as well. But the opportunity for Manitobans to bring Canadians to Manitoba, showcase Manitoba, our important links with our Indigenous communities, our Franco-Manitoba culture here in Winnipeg. We had events planned at the Winnipeg Art Gallery and at the Forks and at the Human Rights Museum and, tours planned throughout Winnipeg to bring those hundreds of Canadian school board members and school system leaders to our capital city and to experience everything Manitoba has to offer. And so there was months and months of planning into that in-person, really valuable experience. that, like you said, was going to be July 2nd through the 5th. The virtual event, we're going to refine it down to July 3rd and 4th. And we still have a lot to offer. Phil Fontaine, Cindy Blackstock, Fred Penner, Nigon Sinclair is part of our presenter lineup for our National Reconciliation Partnership Award presentation. So we're hoping to do as much of that in addition to really valuable professional development online and still make a really important offering to those that are registered to attend, and even hopefully open up registration now that it's virtual to those that may be interested in partaking in the many valuable aspects of the program.
You mentioned the Delta Hotel downtown. I believe that also the Hampton Inn by Hilton downtown was also one of the spaces being booked. I'm just curious whether or not financially, what's it like? Are full refunds being offered then to folks who have booked for their experiences in hotels in Winnipeg, or how have you handled the financial situation given the change?
Yeah, it's a really important consideration. As the host association, when you look at booking, a multi-day event in a downtown of any city in North America these days, frankly, costs are significant, feeding all of those people. And so for the association, we've had really important conversations with the Delta, which has been a decades-long partner of the association. For most individual attendees, they'll be able to cancel or not most, all will be able to cancel their hotel rooms at no cost because we're still, more than 3 weeks out from the event. And then there's contractual conversations and larger logistical conversations around what the association's sort of guarantees are in terms of, that block of rooms. Now, we're very mindful, and we've made it very clear to the Delta, to our partners in government. We have now freed up all of those rooms, and it is the expressed wish of the Manitoba School Boards Association that those rooms all go to evacuees as quickly as possible, and that this, remedy or work to help, at least in part, the ongoing issue of a shortage of hotel spaces. So we're working through all of that. And I mean, I won't get into the nitty gritty of the contract,
but you may have to be eating some cost here, of course. Yeah,
for sure.
Just last briefly, I want to make sure I have my numbers correct. So even though there were 300 people registered and you talked about the block of hotel rooms, how many spaces do you think you're freeing up? And is it at the Delta and the Hampton Inn by Hilton? Are those the two hotels?
Those are the two hotels. It was pretty much all of the Delta and a good chunk of the Hampton Inn. It used to be the Charter House. I think it's the Hampton by Hilton now. And so it'd be in the realm of, 300 to 350 hotel rooms, somewhere in there, depending on, how people had them booked. And so that's a significant number. I think the Delta, based on some numbers that I've seen lately, is one of the largest hotels in Manitoba.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alan, for being with us and to walk us through this. In case it's valuable, where should people find more information about the changes that you're talking about?
The website for the event is winnipeg2025.ca.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is Alan Campbell, president of the Manitoba School Boards Association and the Canadian School Boards Association, talking about their decision to move their conference in early July online to free up hotel space for evacuees. 3 minutes now to 8 o'clock. Heather Wells joins us with live headlines.
The mayor of Flin Flon calls it a disgusting wildfire scam. A website claiming to be a Flin Flon clothing store says its warehouse was destroyed in a wildfire, but that a few final pieces are left. The website says it's your last chance to own part of Manitoba Mode, as it is called. But a closer look at that site, and it is clear the store is a fake. We'll hear from the I-Team on that. As well, charges have been stayed against a man Winnipeg police allege was involved in a sextortion case involving victims in 4 provinces. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you, Heather. Well, coming up on the program after 8 o'clock, we are going to talk about a group of cyclists and residents who got tired of city delays in building a bike lane on Wellington Crescent, so they decided to make one of their own. But now that's been taken down, so we're going to hear more about what's been going on in this developing story. Plus, we're going to hear from a woman who runs a cleaning business about how she's now using it to help people living with mental health issues get a fresh start. It's a very compelling business she's running, and a really compelling interview as well. I spoke with her last week, but we'll get that on the show for you coming up after 8. Right now, 12 degrees with smoke in the air in Winnipeg. Be careful around William between Sherbrooke and Tecumseh, as well as southbound St. Mary's past St. Anne. There's been an issue in that area. 12 in Winnipeg, a high today of 22 in the sun.
Today on Q.
I'm Jill Deacon, in for Tom Power. The Grammy-winning singer-songwriter Alessia Cara has made an unlikely career writing songs about being an introvert in an extrovert's industry. She'll tell you all about her growth, both in music and in life.
Isn't it obvious?
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
A special show for you today from St. John's. We're on stage with a live audience. An amazing lineup of guests joins us. Everyone from musician Tim Baker to the author Michael Crummey to the comedian Andy Jones. That's coming up on a special edition of The Current, live in St. John's.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Police fire rubber bullets at demonstrators in Los Angeles. Protests against U.S. immigration policies are spreading across that country. In a large part of downtown L.A., a nightly curfew is now in effect. The CBC's Richard Madden is following this story from Washington. And Richard, what is the latest?
Yeah, well, some 4,800 troops are already on the ground in California, and President Trump is threatening to deploy more National Guard or Marines to other cities with or without the approval of state or local governments. And this is from Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, New York, Denver, and more. Los Angeles, of course, is where this all started. Protests against the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal migrants that at times turn violent. California's Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, and President Trump accusing each other of politicizing immigration policy.
He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. We do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA.
If we didn't do this, Los Angeles would burn. It would be burning to the ground right now.
Now, in contrast, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who's a major Trump ally, confirms the National Guard has been deployed to his state and are on standby ahead of a major protest expected in San Antonio later tonight.
So what are we watching for next?
Yeah, well, lawmakers here are looking for clarity. What are the orders or directives for the Marines who've been deployed? We know their orders are to protect federal buildings and workers, but what happens if they interact with protesters? Could they use their weapons against their own citizens? Now, this is somewhat of an alarming scenario, so we'll have to see how this plays out because federalizing the National Guard is so rare in this country, but being deployed to other cities is something we haven't seen in modern memory.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. Many of the wildfires burning through Canada's forests are threatening cabins, homes, and businesses. And some people are choosing to fight them themselves. It's the choice some neighbors in Saskatchewan's Narrow Hills Provincial Park made. Aaron Collins has their story.
This stretch of shore along Lower Fishing Lake in Saskatchewan, one worth fighting for.
Still fighting there. It's right at Rangers Beach now.
And in late May, that's just what happened. As two wildfires approached the resort community in the Narrow Hills Provincial Park, a group of locals stayed behind, digging in to beat back the flames.
When things got close to home here, it was all hands on deck to come here and save the cabin.
Travis Craik, one of a handful of men who fought a wall of fire here.
Dad and I, and then three other cabin owners, Rick, Lenny, and Greg.
The neighbors working around the clock, pumping water from the lake to keep the fire burning just yards from their cabins at bay. The cleanup has now begun. Every cabin here, nearly 100, saved. But Craik says similar firefights are going on across Canada.
There's places in northern Ontario, northern Alberta, northern BC, all burning right now. And you hear of all the other locals that are sticking around. So it's not just us. There's so many people right now that are fighting for their own houses and their own communities and forests.
There are currently more than 100 wildfires burning out of control across the country. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Lower Fishing Lake, Saskatchewan.
A video of a physical altercation between two police officers and a 29-year-old woman is causing outrage on social media. The woman was arrested Saturday in Smith Falls, southwest of Ottawa. She's been charged with mischief and causing a disturbance. As Jody Applewhite reports, the woman's family says police mishandled the incident.
When I started recording, I thought it was just going to be like any other arrest. And then I seen how the police officer handled her and my stomach just dropped.
Mackenzie LeClaire looked out her window Saturday night and saw two police officers. Then she took out her phone.
You think it's okay because you have a badge?
And captured one of the officers dragging a woman in handcuffs from a police cruiser, then pinning her to the ground for 20 seconds. She posted the video anonymously to social media.
I had no idea that it would blow up to such extent.
When Sarah Black came across the video, she recognized it was her sister, who's had a history of mental health and substance use issues.
My sister needs help, not more trauma, and officers clearly need better training for mental health intervention if this is how they behave in these kinds of situations.
Police say the woman was arrested after causing disturbance in a local business. Once in the police cruiser, they say she kicked and spat through a plexiglass divider. Black says she and her family aren't disputing the arrest, but the way police handled it shouldn't have happened.
There is no scenario in which someone deserves to be treated with this kind of retaliatory violence.
Smith Falls' police chief Jody Empey says the service began investigating but is now referring the case to another force. The chief will not comment further until that investigation is complete. Both the police officers in the video have been put on administrative duties. Jody Applewhite, CBC News, Ottawa.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will visit Ottawa this weekend, just ahead of the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says the visit will strengthen the long-standing economic and security partnership between both countries. U.S. President Donald Trump says restrictions on magnets and rare earth minerals from China will be lifted, and tariffs on Chinese goods will go to 55%. It is part of a new trade framework between the U.S. and China. This is after both countries raised tariffs on the other's imports. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was at the high-level trade talks in London.
They're going to go back and speak to President Xi and make sure he approves it. And if that is approved, we will then implement the framework.
We have yet to hear from Chinese President Xi Jinping, but Trump wrote on social media that the U.S. would agree to what is in the framework. It includes a 10% levy on U.S. imports and a provision allowing Chinese students to attend American colleges and universities. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu could see his government dissolved today if a vote in the Knesset goes against him. The vote was called by the opposition, but it will only pass if Netanyahu's ultra-Orthodox coalition partners refuse to side with him. And that is what they have threatened to do. They're frustrated. Netanyahu has failed to pass a law that would exempt the ultra-Orthodox community from military service. Ontario's premier is facing fresh calls to be more conservative. An anonymous group is pushing for change from progressive conservative leader Doug Ford. As Mike Crawley reports, the drive for a provincial shift comes as Ford rides a wave of popularity.
A mandate to do whatever it takes to protect Ontario.
Doug Ford on election night, winning his third straight majority, something no leader has accomplished in Ontario since the 1950s.
The people have spoken.
Now, barely 3 months after that decisive win, and just a few weeks after Pierre Poilievre's brand of conservatism fell short in the federal election, some party activists are pushing for a rightward shift from Ford. They're called Project Ontario and describe themselves as a grassroots movement. Their unsigned manifesto says, quote, "When conservatives lose their principles, Ontario loses its way."
I don't think it's a big thing.
Corey Tenaik has been campaign director for all three of Ford's wins. He's brushing off Project Ontario as no threat to the premier.
He's the most popular conservative in Canada by a country mile. The notion that that is a problem is, I just think, a testament to how wrong-headed the people involved in that are.
Patrice Dutil is a professor of politics and public administration at Toronto Metropolitan University.
Maybe they'll put some policy meat on their bones, but right now we don't even have bones. We've got a seed.
The group describes Ontario as in decline, calls its economy poor and its taxes punitive. It says it's organizing an assembly of Conservatives to push for change. CBC News attempted to contact the people behind the movement, but received no response. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Was it honestly the best? 'Cause I just wanna see the next. 부지런히 지나온.
This is the latest major hit released by K-pop supergroup BTS. The band has been on hiatus since 2022. The members of BTS have been completing their mandatory military service, something all able-bodied men in South Korea are required to do. Yesterday, 2 more heartthrobs completed their service, and by the end of the month, all 7 members will be finished serving in the military. Will BTS fans get a reunion? Their agency is hinting yes. That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're reaching us at our live, or listening to us rather, from our live studio in downtown Winnipeg on CBC. Welcome to the Wednesday morning show. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. And we don't have an air quality advisory for Winnipeg, but there are for some other parts of the province today. We always like to start with that. Abby's going to roll through our temperatures and then also update you on where those problems are right now. Well, this half hour on the program, we're going to be talking about a group of cyclists and residents that say they got tired of city delays in building a bike lane on Wellington Crescent, so they made one of their own. Then the city took it down. We're going to take you into that story coming up this half hour. Also, this half hour on the program, we're going to have a conversation with someone who has started a business, and she includes in it how to help people declutter their homes, specifically when it's connected to their mental health challenges. Stay tuned. It's a really, really interesting interview about how those two things can be connected for folks. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells and find out what's developing in news.
Good morning. Well, a caregiver from Cranberry Portage says the wildfire evacuation has been difficult for children. Irvin Head and his nephew and 2 nieces were forced to leave at the end of May. They've been in Winnipeg ever since. Head says the children have mostly been cooped up inside and missed school. It's especially tough, he says, for his 14-year-old nephew, who's missing out on core memories with his friends, like his year-end trip to Churchill. We expect to learn more from Brandon Police today after a student was hurt at a school in Brandon yesterday. A 15-year-old student sent to the hospital in serious condition after being attacked by an intruder at Neelan High School. That story coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into what's happening in the weather as promised. Here is Abby.
Yeah, we're looking at a mix of warm sunshine and hazy skies across the province, with smoke still lingering in both the southern part of the province and up north. We have that air quality warning in effect for several regions. In the southern region, we're talking about stretching from Brandon all the way down to Turtle Mountain. Smoke from, northern BC and Alberta is actually bringing some hazy skies and reduced visibility this morning. You may be feeling that smoke in the air, though that should slowly improve as you get into the day. And then in the northern part of the province, the powerful influence surrounding areas, we also have a special air quality statement as local, the smoke from that fire continues to hang in the air. So if you're sensitive to the smoke, I just advise you to stay indoors as when possible. For Winnipeg right now, 13 degrees. The sun's still trying to crawl out. We have light smoke still in the air. As we get into the morning, the smoke should begin to clear out. Then we'll see more of sunshine through the day. This afternoon, we'll see that transition from a mix of sun to clouds, with temperatures warming to 22 degrees. In the Red River, the Interlake, the Westman, the Parkland region, it's a mild stats in those regions. We're seeing temperatures between 10 and 14 degrees at this time. Also cloudy conditions in some areas, and highs will be close to 22. While up north, we're seeing 2 degrees in Churchill at this time and cloudy.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi, who does the weather on our show. And now to Sierra Sanders, who's been watching traffic. A couple things going on now.
Yeah. So Chris called while we were in the news, actually. He said there was a stopped bus in the right-hand lane at southbound Pembina and Jubilee. He said it looked like it had just happened. So if you have any updates on that, please feel free to give me a call. We still have a little bit of time in the show. So maybe expect some backups there and keep left to pass there. And I also mentioned there was a collision southbound St. Mary's past St. Anne's. That has been cleared. So all lanes are open. The collision has been cleared and emergency crews are off the scene now. And as we've been mentioning throughout the show, some construction on William Avenue between Sherbrooke Street and Tecumseh Street. All westbound lanes, the eastbound median lane and north side sidewalk will be closed. It is expected to open back up tomorrow, but maybe expect some delays in that area today for sure. And as I said, there's still some time left in the show, so if there's anything out there slowing you down, give me a call on the CBC commuter line 204-788-3093.
Well, speaking of the morning commute or the commute anytime, if you saw concrete blocks, bollards, and ropes along Wellington Crescent in Winnipeg last Friday, your eyes were not playing tricks on you. After the city delayed building a bike lane there, a group of cyclists took matters, as I mentioned, into their own hands. They built one of their own. It stretched from Coburn Street North to Hugo Street North. This is along Wellington Crescent. The date chosen for the installation was not coincidental. It fell on the 1-year anniversary of a high-speed collision that killed a cyclist on that stretch. Michael was one of the many who built the unauthorized bike lane. He was also present when city officials showed up to take it apart, citing public safety concerns. We've agreed not to use his last name, and he joins us on the phone. Good morning.
Hey, good morning there.
So why was it important for you, first of all, to build this along Wellington Crescent when the city said they weren't going to?
I mean, the city is taking no action. The cyclist there, Rob, died in June last year. And in November, Councillor Janice Lukes, who's the head of Public Works, talked about a super short-term solution of 30 kilometers an hour for this dangerous 1 kilometer stretch. And then a short-term solution of bike lanes using off-the-shelf materials, and then a long-term solution designed to protect all vulnerable road users. But the city said it would be up and built by the end of spring this year. And on the 1-year anniversary of Rob's death, the city had the gall to announce yet another delay in even presenting the report. And now Councillor Lukes is saying that it won't be until next year that this is even built, 2 years after Rob's death.
I'm going to sensitively ask you a question here, and just with a bit of pushing it, because I know the circumstances around his death were, as you said, a very, very high speed chase. Would a bike lane have made a difference?
That's a hypothetical. It's really, really, really hard to answer that. But I can tell you that these are some incredibly wide lanes. Like, they're 12-foot wide Lanes. They're wider than Pembina Highway lanes. They're wider than Henderson Highway lanes. So maybe the driver wouldn't have felt as free to go 159 kilometers an hour down a residential street if there had been some kind of constraint there.
Yeah. You're a father who also lives in that area, so you know the area well. How did the news of a cyclist there, Rob, as you're mentioning his name, being hit and run, change the way you and your kids move around that stretch?
I mean, we got to see the, flashing red and blue lights that morning just down the street. It was traumatizing. Like, we don't take that stretch anymore. It's hard to walk down that part of Wellington Crescent. I definitely don't let my kid bike down Wellington Crescent like that. My wife bikes to work through the summer, and she goes an extra 2 kilometers out of her way to not take that stretch of Wellington Crescent anymore.
Tell me about what you set up. You and hundreds of others built this bike lane. First, I guess, how is it that you got that many people out, and how did you actually construct it?
Well, so this is it was community installed here. Like, there's people who live along Wellington Crescent, people who live in those condo buildings, people who live in the neighborhood, people who walk their dogs along Wellington Crescent, people who and people who cycle around Wellington Crescent. So there was a big block party to celebrate kind of a 1-year celebration of life for Rob. He was also killed the day after his birthday too. So there were about 400 people at the block party, and we had planned out a way to, using tall, high visibility poles and 2x4s on top of cinder blocks and removable green paint, build about 400 total meters of bike lane in both directions, while maintaining access to driveways, while maintaining access to bus stops and fire hydrants. And we wanted to. It shouldn't be as hard as it is to get the city to take action here. We wanted to demonstrate that this is something that a bunch of people in an hour and a half can put together. It shouldn't be taking years and years in order to design and study and build this.
And as you said, you've gone through some of the traditional channels to try to get a bike lane installed, and it's just delayed, correct?
Yeah. Back in November, we had about 54 people show up to City Hall and tell their stories, tell the harrowing near misses they've had while they're walking, while they're pushing their stroller, while they're biking. And we've gone through all the official proper channels, and we still have nothing on the ground.
The city has said that the bike lane you installed, I mean, they took it down. You already talked about what that felt like for you, but they said it was hazardous to drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists. What's your thought on that?
I mean, on the one hand, I get it, but on the other hand, I'm just so mad. Like they'll delay for 2 years in building the dang thing, and that same night they find the time to come and tear it down. Like if they actually cared about keeping people safe, they'd be building something instead.
Your next chance to advocate for the bike lane, Michael, will be during the next Public Works meeting. It is tomorrow. At this point, what do you want from the city? Just to reiterate what your ask would be tomorrow.
We're asking for the city to actually take action. Tomorrow they're going to be allowing yet another delay. I certainly would love it if my employer allowed me to not deliver something for months and months and months and have no repercussions. So we're asking folks, you can register today before noon on the city's website. If you search for council and committee meetings, there's 2 particular issues on the agenda that really focus on keeping our streets safe. We'd really encourage people to show up and speak in favor of, letting people be in the neighborhoods, letting kids be able to play road hockey on the street.
Thank you very much for being with us, Michael, and I'm sorry for the loss of Rob Jenner, because obviously we're talking about a man who lost his life a year ago. Appreciate you being on CBC with us.
Thank you so much.
It's Michael, a local cycling advocate. We reached to the city for comment. To the spokesperson, a spokesperson emailed us this, quote, any unsecured materials placed in the right-of-way are hazardous to drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists. Our crews remove the items placed on the road in the urgent interest of public safety, end quote. They went on to say, quote, certainly we understand the community's frustration with the report's delay, but continue our commitment to finding a solution that works for residents, cyclists, and motorists who use Wellington, end quote. So as I mentioned, temporary active transportation measures will be discussed tomorrow. The Public Works meeting is June 12th, so that is tomorrow. 61-year-old Rob Jenner died a year ago last Friday.
So now we got cars flying in the air?
Dramatic car stunts are not just the stuff of movies, they're also the stuff of car commercials.
The case for precision German engineering rests on our tires.
But sometimes the stunt doesn't go as planned. Crazy automobile stunt commercials on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Well, our next interview is with a Winnipegger who is using her cleaning business for a greater good. Rebecca Trudeau has a day job working in mental health services, but she also has a small cleaning business as well. And a year ago, she had the idea to combine both of her skills to help others. She started offering, in her words, quote, non-judgmental deep cleans in homes for people struggling with their mental health. And she's in studio to tell us more about it. Good morning.
Morning.
What's the connection between someone's mental health and maybe having clutter or a house that is just not getting clean?
Yeah, so I think when we're experiencing something like anxiety, for example, for a long period of time, basically what ends up happening is our body can only tolerate that state for a period of time, and then it kind of shuts down in order to survive because we're so overwhelmed, thus going into maybe a state of depression. And in that state of depression, oftentimes we are not able to do anything outside of survival, right? So going to work, for example, or maybe caring for family is like the utmost limit of maybe what we can do. So things like cleaning your home, for example, or sometimes being neglected, for example.
And then what happens if the home's not clean because your mental health, then that can affect, I understand, like even how you feel about yourself or your pride, or somehow you feel like you're failing even though you're not.
Right. It's kind of a cycle, right? So we maybe neglect our home and then we experience shame because of what it looks like. And then we sometimes are not able to even start cleaning because we are unsure of where to start, and we don't have the energy in order to do so. And then we experience more shame, and then we don't have energy to, again, start. So it's kind of a cycle, I would say, of shame, where sometimes we're not able to do it, sometimes for years at a time, maybe 3 years, 5 years, sometimes I see maybe 12 years, right, of not able to clean the home.
That's where non-judgment comes in. Where did the idea for these mental health deep cleans come from?
Right, yeah. So it was actually just a post on Reddit. I'm not on there super regularly, but it was a post on Reddit from a student that had posted that they were kind of, slowly coming out of their depression, but finally realized that they were wanting to have their home cleaned as a start to their recovery process. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I've had a cleaning side gig, I would say, small scale for 10 years. And I ended up responding to that post saying, I work in mental health full time, but do have a side cleaning gig that I do. So if you're interested, just reach out to me. And there were a couple of people that boosted that post on Reddit. And then I'm not sure if that person reached out to me. I don't think so. But there were actually many people that responded to the post and reached out to me in order to receive one of those deep cleans.
How many clients have you helped so far since you
not too many,
started?
around 10, I would say.
Yeah.
It does take, I would say, a significant amount of time. So, for example, I have gone, anywhere from 3 to 8 Saturdays in a row, kind of a full day's work in order to clean some of the homes, because I need to do one room at a time, anywhere between, 6 to 8 hours per room. Throughout the last year, kind of filling my time outside of work with these things. And it takes a lot of time to do so.
You don't really work with people with mental health needs in your day job, but you also can personally, I understand, because you said this is okay for us to ask you about, you can relate to some of the struggle too, right?
For sure, yeah. So I come from a family history of quite severe mental health concerns as well as substance use. So kind of grew up understanding these things, these experiences of people. And as we know, when you come from these experiences, both genetically and environmentally, you potentially can experience these things. So I too have experienced anxiety. And that's something actually that is kind of related to this story, is the way that my anxiety presents is a little bit of an obsessive compulsive disorder range of symptoms. So cleaning actually provides me a lot of relief, especially when it comes to homes that are quite dirty or messy. Once I get it to the point of being very clean, it makes me feel calm.
How much do you share with clients? I'm imagining you there Saturday after Saturday. It's obviously not just about coming in and cleaning. And I suspect there's an arc to when you start and you first meet them to how they feel at the end.
Yeah. There's, of course, other things that are happening other than cleaning. I wouldn't want to kind of go past my role of a cleaner within this circumstance, but sometimes we're having conversations about navigating mental health and helping to support them in accessing some resources, because sometimes that's the challenge that people are facing, is like, where do I start in terms of reaching out? So there's conversations that are happening. They also get curious with me, asking me questions of like, how are you doing this? And like, are you, kind of grossed out by this? And I say, no, I'm not grossed out. It actually, any of the judgment that I may walk in with turns into compassion and care and concern for this person's well-being.
What do they say when the cleaning is done?
Yeah, so I've heard that they're extremely grateful. It feels better kind of in their home. But also for some folks, it is a lot to process, I would say. So for example, when they, perhaps haven't cleaned their home for maybe 10, 12 years, it's a lot to process to be able to like take in that cleanliness and like take in that joy, right? So that's also a lot to process. I think maybe we think that it's like automatically happy, but it's also a lot to process in terms of, this home is clean now and I can sstop, shaming myself. And it's a lot to process to like accept a clean environment as
Yeah,
well.
the stuff has been there for a reason. It can be directly related to what's what's happening. What would you say to someone who might be listening and maybe wants some help with cleaning? They're unsure about reaching out though.
Yeah, I think I would say it's okay that this has happened. There are many reasons why this has happened. What we have learned through mental health work is that oftentimes people are experiencing some sort of history of trauma, for example, and mental health is very difficult to deal with. So what I recommend is, reaching out to a safe person or a non-judgmental person. And sometimes we can't do things by ourselves, right? Sometimes we do need that support. I think making some room maybe for that shame or that sadness and listening to those emotions, right? That shame, that sadness is maybe trying to tell you that you need care or need support or need connection. And if you can do your best to kind of accept that care, as difficult as it may be, it may feel better on the other side.
Really beautifully said. Now, I have that listeners can get in touch if they want help through you with cleaning help. truecleaning@hotmail.com, and True is TRU because your last name's Trudeau. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, super. Rebecca, thank you very much for coming in and telling us about the work that you do.
Thank you very much.
That's Rebecca Trudeau, cleaner specializing in non-judgmental deep cleans. Well, we're coming up to 8:30 in news time, but let's find out what's happening over the noon hour. This is the part of our show where Marjorie Dalhouse, the host of Radio Noon, pops in to tell us about the call-in portion of their show, which is between 12:30 and 1. Hi, Marge.
Hi there, Marcy. Well, today we're talking about midwifery here in Manitoba because this week marks the 25th anniversary of regulated midwifery. So we're going to be asking people stories. How did you have your child delivered? Was it by a midwife? Is there a midwife that you want to give a shout out to? So we're going to be marking this significant week here in Manitoba with the president of the Midwifery Association here of Manitoba joining us to hear your questions and comments coming up after 12:30.
Such an important and special relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, between families and midwives. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
So lots to talk about and listen to between 12:30 and 1. You can join the live conversation then with Marjorie and her guest, or you can call now and leave a message. 788-37. I'm going to get that wrong, so I'm going to give it to you after the news. That's next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, a little bit of smoke out there. It's 13 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds today with local smoke and a high of 22. The mayor of Flin Flon says it is a disgusting wildfire scam. A website claiming to be a Flin Flon clothing store says its warehouse was destroyed in a wildfire, but that a few final pieces are left. The website says this is your chance to own part of Manitoba Mode, as it is called, before it's gone forever. But a closer look at the site, and it is clear the store is a fake. For example, the photos of the clothing have been scraped from other sites, and Manitoba is spelled incorrectly. George Fontaine is the mayor of Flin Flon.
Within the community of Flin Flon, no structures have been lost. So if they had, pretended to be in there, that's, mistake number one.
Fontaine says it's terrible someone is preying on people's sympathies and generosity at a time like this. The Manitoba Mode page has since been taken down. A caregiver from Cranberry Portage says the evacuation has been difficult for children. Irvin Head and his nephew and two nieces were forced to leave at the end of May. They've been in Winnipeg ever since. He says the children have mostly been cooped up inside and miss school. He says it's especially tough for his 14-year-old nephew, who's missing out on core memories with his friends, like his year-end school trip to Churchill.
These kids were really looking forward to it. It's upsetting, and the best we can do is say okay, we'll go to the zoo, this and that, but you could sort of tell he was really disappointed.
Head says he is open to having the kids continue their education online or through homeschooling until they can go home. The Red Cross faces criticism from a Northern Manitoba emergency coordinator working with fire evacuees. Laurie Forbes in the RM of Kelsey is helping more than 100 families who are staying in the PAW after being forced from their homes in several surrounding communities. Forbes says they need money. She says many evacuees can't navigate through Red Cross rules.
A lot of people up here don't have email. Some people don't even have a telephone. I've been using my phone to get them registered. Some people just were told today that they have to go to Winnipeg to show identification before they would get any support. Well, Winnipeg is 6 hours away. That's not going to happen.
Forbes says Red Cross officials should come to the paw as they promised. A 15-year-old student in Brandon was sent to hospital in serious condition yesterday after being attacked by a school intruder who had a sword. Police say a Neelan High School student called about an armed male in the building. Inspector Jason Dupuis says police were on the scene within minutes.
The student stated a male was going crazy and holding a sword. At the same time, staff at Neelan High School were made aware of an armed male. Neelan staff immediately put the school on lockdown and called 911.
Dupuis says a 16-year-old suspect was arrested. The 15-year-old victim was taken to hospital in serious condition but has since been upgraded to stable. Charges have been stayed against a man Winnipeg police allege was involved in a sextortion case involving victims in 4 provinces. Tongan Justin Tongan was charged in 2023 after police said a man reported he shared intimate images with someone online who then threatened to share them unless the victim paid up. Police say they later found 9 other victims across Manitoba, Alberta, Ontario, and PEI. Prosecutors say they decided not to proceed after considering the victims' unwillingness to relieve the experience by testifying. However, the Crown says it did seek restitution for all the victims. Back on Canadian soil. After 6 months overseas, Sergeant Ryan Gilks gets to play catch with his 4-year-old son. Gilks returned to CFB Shiloh last night after a half-year deployment to Latvia as part of Operation Reassurance, Canada's contribution to NATO's efforts to deter aggression in Central and Eastern Europe. The mission involves exercises, training, and building ties between allied forces.
For me, the difference is just like us just being there as like a show of force, and like if you want to come across, like you're going to have to go through all of us, and like not going to happen kind of deal. So.
Gilks says Operation Reassurance is a display of strength and solidarity between NATO members. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks for the morning, Heather Wells.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Big thanks to our news department. So Heather Wells out there, as well as Joni Nicolo and Megan Ketcherson and Rosanna Hempel contributing to today's show. Our live team, Abby Adiemi, Brad Lillies, and Sierra Sanders. So much fun and so hardworking. Love working with you guys. Producer in unit this week, Donna Carrero has been in our unit. Leif Larson is the overall senior producer of audio here at CBC Manitoba. In addition, thanks to those who worked on the program and items in it. Our CA reporter, current affairs reporter that is Jim Agapito. Associate producers with items on today's show, Sid Sundance Horshig, as well as Marshall Hodgins and Jenna Bedosso. Thanks everybody for your work. So before the news, I lost a phone number in my brain. It's to call into Radio Noon if you want to be part of their conversation about midwifery in Manitoba, or if you have a story to share. If you want to leave a message now, it's 788-3797. That is the Noon listener line, 788-3797. Abby.
Air quality warnings in effect for most regions. For the Western region, the smoke should be clearing as you get into the day. Southern regions will see a mix of sun and clouds, highs close to 22. Up north, we're going to see cooler and dry temperatures. It's going to be hazy up there today.
Last word on the road.
Yes, we had Tim give us a call. Apparently there was a parked car on westbound Ellis at Langside, so that might cause a little bit of backup, especially during this rush hour here. So keep left to pass there.
All right. Thanks, Sierra. On behalf of all of us, thank you for listening to Information Radio. Thanks for spending some time with CBC. I hope the rest of your Wednesday is awesome, excellent, safe, and you find some friendship and some laughter in your day. Take care. Be well. I'm Marcy Marcusa. The Current's next on CBC.